Hi guys, welcome to this Microsoft Project online overview. My name is Steve and I'm the Senior Trainer at It's Easy Training. What we're going to cover in the next few slides are just the main elements of the course and what is covered in each element. So straight away let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is learn how to create a task list. The main focus in this section is understanding the indentations that you can create, the different types, whether it's automatically scheduled or manually scheduled, and entering durations. After that, we'll learn how to format a Gantt chart. So we'll learn how to change the colors of these non-working time bars, whether we are going to display task names or resource names, as you can see there, whether we're going to have it coloring up red if it's a critical path and things like that. After that, we're going to look at linking the tasks. There are 4 types of link. There's one qualified there, 2SS, start to start. We'll go through each of those in detail. I'll show you the different places that you can add these links and the do's and the don'ts. After we've done that, we will then look at doing constraints. This one shown here is a must finish on constraint, which is on the project complete task. We'll also look at this deadline feature and how you can use that to visually indicate tasks that need action. Once we've done that, we will then create our resource list. There are 3 types of resource: work, material and cost. And I will talk about whether you use people's names or appointments, and I'll explain why I have information in this group column and the benefits of that. Then we will go through the process of adding resources to task. So in this example, you can see Install Software Room 1 has these resources, and the Gantt chart is formatted to display the resources so you can see them quite clearly on the Gantt chart. Once we've added the resources, we will then save a baseline, and I'll talk about the different baselines that you can save. There's up to 11 baselines that you can save, and the different views that you can see with baselines, whether you have a multiple baseline Gantt displayed or just a single baseline displayed, but using the format tab showing different baselines and the movement of those. Once we've saved the baseline, we can start doing reports. We can run reports as the project progresses. We can create our own report, which is what this is, and we'll go through this process explaining how to create a report. We'll also go through the process of track changes. There's several ways to track changes. I prefer using this table, the tracking table, and the tracking Gantt, so you can quickly see movement from your plan. The baseline markers are these grey ones, and in this example it's already moved off that plan. That's tracking and updating tasks. And then finally, the benefits of doing this course. First of all, you'll have a knowledge of the world leading project management tool, which is what Microsoft Project is. You'll have a library of tools to assist you managing your projects and tracking projects as they progress, and then you'll have support via email or video for as long as you require it, and that basically is an email to me, and I'll try and help you use Microsoft Project to get the best out of it. And that's basically what is covered on the course. There's a few other things, a few customizations as well, which will help you. Hopefully you enjoy the course, and thank you for your time. Hi guys, welcome to this module on Microsoft Project. We're going to look at creating a task list, indenting tasks, formatting the Gantt chart, creating filters and groups, changing working time, and embedding documents. But first of all, a task list. Starting at the top, and I'll type in my title, which is going to be Develop Strategy. I'm not going to change the duration or the dates just yet, but just a point, I have my project set to new tasks on auto scheduled, not manual scheduled, so these dates will automatically populate. So first of all, it's going to be coord teams, train staff, develop product, test product, market product, and sell product. So those are my steps. I've already said this is the title for this group of tasks, so I'm going to indent these subtasks by going to the task tab, clicking indent right. So now this becomes a summary task, emboldened. And again, I'm not going to type on this, because if I do type on this, it will make this task a manually scheduled task, which I don't want it to do, because I want it to summarize the subtasks. So duration for core teams is going to be 5 days. I don't need to type days because the default setting is days. Train staff 3 days, develop product 5 days, test product 5 days, market 5. Now this comes up to tell me that I could basically click on the first one of those 5 if it's going to be 5 all the way down, and use this little cross to pull it down. Usually that comes up on the last one of the type you're doing. Sell product 3 days. So the summary task tells me that the whole project is 5 days. Now what I want to do is show you how to use a recurring task, or the recurring task feature. Sometimes you want to do the same task, like a team meeting, over and over again throughout the year. So over to the task option, and there is recurring tasks. So I'll give it a title, team meeting, duration, leave it at 1 day, and let's say it's going to be every Wednesday, and I'm going to get it to end after 4 occurrences. Click OK to that. Now again, that's a summary task with a recurring task symbol in the information column, and then these small boxes, which if you hover over, tells you that because we've said it's going to be on a Wednesday, it's got what's called a moderate constraint on. In terms of project, these 4 tasks are now more important than these ones at the minute. But there you go, there's a recurring task, and if I click this down, they collapse, and if I click those ones down, they collapse. So at the moment, according to this, the whole project is 16 days. But that is including team meetings. I don't want team meetings to be part of developed strategy, so I'm going to outdent that. Now at the top it says developed strategy is 5 days and team meetings is 16 days. So the whole project is still 16 days, but I can't see that from the top. So I'm just going to insert a summary task again. So if I go insert task there, call this project A, and then indent everything underneath project A, so I get an overarching timeline across the top. So the whole project is still 16 days, and I can collapse these down, and it gives me the structure of the project. Now if you have loads of these, you can use the view option and go to outline and select the different levels there, level 1 and then level 2, and then show all subtasks rather than clicking down individual groups of tasks. Next thing I want to do is a milestone. Milestone is, I call milestones a management checkpoint, so I'll call this one end of phase. Now a milestone needs to have a 0 duration to show the milestone marker on the Gantt chart. This part of the screen is the actual Gantt chart. This whole thing is the Gantt chart view, but this is the Gantt chart itself, and this side is the table, and the table we've got when you first open project is always the entry table. Now obviously if that's the end of phase, it's not in the right place. I want that to move to the end. Now if I change this start date to go after the last team meeting, which is the 29th, I'll put it onto the 30th. It's asking me if I want to move it with a link. I'm not going to have a link on it just yet. Click OK to that, and it moves to the 30th. We'll do links later on. So because I've done that, I've physically changed that date. Again, I've got a moderate constraint appearing in the information column. Project likes to schedule things. It likes to schedule things based on durations and links. So if you intervene and change a date, it then becomes, in project terms, slightly more important than any of these tasks in this example, because we haven't changed any dates. Okay, so that's the first stage typed out. Now I want to look at this side, so I'm going to move this bar, which I'm going to call the curtain. That's not the technical name, but it's as good as any. Move it out of the way a little bit so we've exposed this a bit more. I want to put the task names on these tasks. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can go to the Format tab and Format, or you can just double click on any white space on the Gantt chart itself, and then you'll get the same box coming up, bar styles. Now this is like the legend for the Gantt charts, the different Gantt charts, so all the symbols that you will see, plus you can add your own at the bottom there, will appear in this box. But for this little part I want to go to where it says text and change what is the default setting, which is resource names, to just name, which is task name, but project calls it name, and then click OK to that, and you'll see the task names coming onto the Gantt chart. Now you can have things on the left, you can have things in the center, and you can have things like that on the right. It's totally up to you, but what you don't want is too much information. The reason I like to see things on this is because quite often people just send or print the Gantt chart, so without tasks on you'd have to print this off as well. So it's totally up to you how you want to display your information. I think it's easier for people. Sometimes also people like to see a line going across there, so on the Format tab you've got these grid line options where if I wanted to Gantt rows there, look, if I select a line, change the color to red for something, that's a bit in your face I think, but people would put maybe black lines across there to make it stand out a bit more so they can follow the tasks all the way across. I'm just going to do undo for that because I don't like that. So that's how you add or remove names on the Gantt chart. Now the timeline across the top, you can edit the timeline by clicking this minus button or the plus button in the corner, zoom in and zoom out, or you can double click on the timeline itself and do it through this timeline box. So at the moment it's set to 2 tiers. I'm going to change that to 3 tiers, and the way this works is the top tier has to have the largest measurement. So at the moment I want to put everything onto weeks, so I'm going to put the middle tier onto weeks, the bottom tier onto weeks. Now it's come up with an error message there, but because it says 5 days there, because when you click this plus and minus, this count box changes. You just have to be careful that you don't get caught out there, because you could get yourself in a little loop going round and round in circles trying to get out of this box. 1 week, 1 week, top tier can go in weeks as well. So what I want is the top tier to stay as it is, so it's giving you the date. But the middle tier, I want to change the label so it shows you the week of the year, that one, what week it is, so week 14 for example. And then the bottom tier, I want to go from the start of the project, so week 1 from the start of the project. And I'll click OK to that, and that will apply. Scroll to the right a little bit. So week 1 of the project is week 19 of the year, and it's the 6th of May 2019. Now as you can see on mine, it's quite hard to see the non-working days at the moment, so I'm just going to double click back on that timeline, and you've got the non-working time there. I'm going to change the colour from light grey to a darker colour, probably blue even, see what that looks like. Still can't see that, so dark green. I'm not seeing that. Oh, there we go. Now I can see it. Okay, so how you format this is totally up to you. Putting it back to default is 2 tiers. The default setting is 2 tiers, and the two tiers you work with are the bottom tier and the middle tier, so the bottom tier needs to be on days, the middle tier needs to be on weeks, days and weeks. Click OK to that, and then you can see the Gantt chart clearly. Now if you look at this task looks like, because I've changed that colour to green, which I'm just going to double click on that and change that to a different colour because that is a bit intrusive. Try blue, that's worse. I'll go for a darker grey then. Okay, I've never been good with colour schemes, but basically this looks like this task is going over the weekend, the way this is sitting at the moment. So do these. And if you are printing this off without this list, so you haven't got the actual durations, people may be mistaken into thinking you are working over the weekend. So what I tend to do on mine is double click on that timeline and just get it to go in front of the taskbars. If I click OK to that, now it's quite obvious that you are not working over the weekend. Now the next thing I want to look at is on the project tab, I want to look at how you change the working time. So change working time on the project tab is for the project. When you add resources, which we'll do later on a different module, each resource has its own calendar. Initially it is just a copy of this standard calendar, or the calendar that you create in this box. The way a project works, it looks at a resource calendar first and then it looks at the project calendar. So if there's no changes in the resource calendar, it would be a mirror of the project calendar. So what you put in the project calendar are things like holiday shutdowns, factory shutdowns, bank holidays would go here, exceptions and things like that. So if I put, for example, Easter, we've had Easter, but let's just say pretend it hasn't happened. So let's say Easter is there, Good Friday, and then so that there is now shaded out as a non-working time. So that would cascade through everybody else's projects. If you had somebody working over Easter, you would edit their project to allow them to work. Now to set working times, you need to go into this tab and then you click onto the default option, which you can rename. Go into details, and let's say we finish working on Friday at 12 o'clock. You just get rid of that, click OK to that, and then if you click on any Friday, it should give you that time block there, 8 till 12. Every other day should be the default setting. So that's how you change the times. I'm just going to put that back to the defaults of Friday so it doesn't mess us up later on. So use project default times. If you had a non-working day, you would tick that option. If Saturday and Sunday was working days, you would highlight those two and select it through there, or you could change it in options. Now sometimes some places in the world are quite hot, so you have summer working hours. So if I go, let's go to the 1st of July, 1st of July to the 1st of September, we are going to work summer hours, 2nd of September. So I'll go into details, I select the working week, I set these, delete that second block and change that one maybe to 1300. So we work from 8 till 1 in the summer period. So automatically that will flag up. If I go back prior to July, it's the normal working hours. Into July it gives me the summer working hours. Let's click OK to that. Okay, so that was the project calendar. Now if I go to the view tab, we'll have a quick look at some of the filters. So you notice there that these tasks highlighted there because things change, it's default to change. You've got this highlight option here where you can select active tasks, for example. You can select critical tasks, for example. You can select milestones, for example, and different things are highlighted. Or you can select no highlight. You've also got the option in there to create your own different highlights. You can create your own triggers for different tasks and different types of tasks. Underneath that, you've got preset filters. Again, you can click on active tasks, which is everything. You can click on critical, which is just those. You can click on milestones, which is just that one, and so on. So these are preset filters, and again, you can create your own filter down the bottom there. Going back to no filter, and then you have this option, which is a group. So you're basically just selecting an option, and these tasks are grouped by that option. So critical there. Milestones, and then no group. Now also, in terms of filters, every column has a little drop down arrow in every table, and there are many tables. So if I go to this one, filters, I can say everything that starts next week, and they're just the ones that start next week. And then you get a little filter sign on there, which I'm now going to take off, tick select all, and then I'll come back. So these are quite useful, because if I move this curtain across a little bit, on the resource names, for example, you could select, I know I haven't got any resources at the moment, you could filter by a specific person, and then that would give you just their tasks. Now, back to the project tab. Just want to have a quick look at project information. In project information, this is where you set the start date of the project, which will always be today's date if you just open a new one, unless you change it. It's also where you set whether your project runs from a start date or a finish date. Now, the main difference between these two is when you create a new task on a start date project, it always starts on today's date, or the date closest to the project start date. If you've got it on a finish date, the new tasks start at the end of the project and work backwards when you link them up. In this box, you've also got the current date listed there, and this option for status date, which you've also got there on the ribbon. So I don't need to come into this box to change the status date, but you can use the status date to measure how well or how bad you're doing on a project. Calendar options there. You've got the 3 default calendars there, and in the calendar, in the change working time box, you can actually create new calendars in addition to those 3. And then this priority box, which we'll look at in a different module, basically you can change that priority for new tasks to be whatever you want. The default is 500, but the range goes from 1 to 1,000. Basically, if you have a priority set on a task on one of these tasks at 1,000, it's far, far more important, and it won't move than something that's set at 400. When I say it won't move when you ask the computer to rationalize over allocation of resources, for example, which will come on again later on. So just cancel that off, and then I'm just going to double click into one of the tasks. So on the general tab, you can see this information. So this task is a priority of 500, and if I didn't want it to be 500, I could change that there. What I normally tell my class is admin tasks put at 400, engineering tasks that you consider more important put at 600, and then if you do get the computer to rationalize over allocation of resources, it will take that into account, and it will move a 400 priority task before it will move a 600 priority task. So that's project information. Now the last thing on this top part I want to look at is just print preview for a minute. So if I click into print preview, there's the print preview. I've got the legend at the bottom there, which I'm going to remove in a minute. But I want to, when I print my project plan, I want some information to appear at the top here. So to do that, I'm going to go into page setup. Page setup is pretty similar to what you get in other programs, Microsoft programs. Project has the same problem as Excel. There's no quick fix to get it to print on one page. You have to sort of play around with fit on 1 by 2 and adjust the scale and things like that to get it to fit how you want it. Margins, that's very, very small margin area. It's only half an inch, or as it says there, 1.27 centimeters. Showing my age, I suppose. But on the header and the footer tabs, this is where you can add project information. Now, what I do for the header tab will apply to the footer tab as well. You can put the same sort of information on there. You've got 3 sections, left, center, right. So in the left section, I'm going to just type my name. In the center section, I'm going to use these little buttons, and I want the date and the time, and you get a little preview there, date and time. And in the right section, I'm going to use these fields, these project fields. So the first one I'm looking at there says percentage complete, so I'm going to add that one. And then I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to add one called actual cost. So add, and then I'm going to press enter, and then I'm going to get one called VAC, variance at completion. These are the ones I normally have on my projects. Now you can see everything's 0 at the moment because we haven't actually done anything in this project, but as this project goes live, once you've saved the baseline, these will then start accruing, and you'll see real-time figures every time you print this off. So I can put this information on other fields into the footer. Obviously you can't put too much information in there, but you can see the preview there. The footer at the moment's just got the page number on. I'm going to leave that as it is. The legend though, which is this on the bottom there, I don't want that on every page because that is taking up space, and it's something I can sort out. I'm not going to take it off completely because a lot of people don't know what these symbols mean. I'm just going to tick the legend page, and when I click OK to that, you'll see what happens. So it's gone off there. If I move across, I've got a page at the end with just the legend on, so you get the best of both worlds. Come back out of there. Now I want to show you how to embed documents into these tasks. One of the conflicts I think you get in Microsoft Project is how much information do you put in this task list. People like to put everything down there, so I tell people don't write War and Peace. You don't need a massive list. If you've got processes in place where you may have method statements already that you are using, why change that by writing a whole thing in Microsoft Project? Embed the method statement in one of these tasks. People can read. When they've done the method statement, they can update the task as being complete. So to do that, if you double click on the task like that, you come into this thing called task information, this box, and you've got the general tab, predecessors, which we'll look at in a later module. Basically it's how you tell project which task this follows. Resources, one place that you can add resources. Advanced, lots of information in there that we'll look at in later modules. And then notes, this is where I want to be for this little bit. So I'm going to type specification, for example. You need to put a little title or some text in there, because when it appears in this information column, if you haven't got a title, you only get an apostrophe appearing there, and it's quite hard to understand what that is without having to double click into it each time. So say this is, we're coordinating teams here. This is the document that specifies the type of people that you want. So I'm just going to click on Insert Object, and then it should access my computer. So you've got two options here, new file type, which I could go and get one of these, or from file that you've already created. So I'm going to browse for a file that's on my computer. I'll just get an Excel file. One of these will do. I'll get charting. Now at the moment, if I click OK to that, that will embed a copy of that file into this task, which I don't want because that would be a dead copy. If I tick that option, link, that means it's a live link, like a pointer. So any changes to that Excel file will be reflected through this. And then if I tick this option, it will be displayed as a pointer, as an icon, as opposed to opened and expanded. So if I click OK to that, it should come in. It takes a couple of seconds. Now the benefit of doing this is you're using Microsoft Project as a one-stop shop for all your project documentation. So rather than having files outside of project, you can drill through the tasks into the relevant places and get the information. Over a long project, that's a benefit because people tend to forget where things are in project files if you've created lots of different files. But if it's through the project plan, it's a lot easier. Now you see that pointer there. If I double click on that, that should open that file. Now she blows. So that's an Excel file. If I did any changes on that, it's a live change. I don't want to save that because I didn't do anything. So I'll click OK to that one. And then on trained staff, before I do that though, there you go. Look, there's a little symbol and there's the title. So if I didn't have a title, it would just say notes with the apostrophe, which doesn't tell you anything. So now I just want to do one last thing. On trained staff, I'm going to call this budget, and I'm going to embed another document. This time it's going to be a blank Excel spreadsheet, so Microsoft Excel workbook. I'm still going to display it as an icon because if I had more than one document embedded, if I don't have them displayed as icons, I would have to scroll down to the bottom of each one to get to the next one, which is slightly irritating, especially if it's a Word document and there's quite a lot of pages in there. So that's opened Excel. Now it says worksheet in project 1. I don't even have to save this. It stays in embedded inside the project task, but I could save it if I wanted to and have it outside onto my computer if I need to do that. But let's just do a few things, 3 things. So I use these in addition to the cost resources just to give me a bit more scope. You've got the whole functionality of Excel by bringing this in there. So I'll just do 3 items: hotel, fuel, and food. And give us some prices: 1, 2, 3, £50 and £50. Then just add those up, format them to pounds. So there's my little task list. Now I can keep adding things, and that figure there is in this example are expenses, and I could add that figure as a fixed cost into my project plan at the end or whenever I'm having a report phase. The benefit of this is just dynamic. It's got all the functionality of Excel, like I've said, and I can keep coming in and out of this. If I close this down, it just sits there that as an icon. If I double click on it again, it should just open, and I can edit it again, and so on. So both options are quite useful, and I use them both in most of the projects that I use. Now, one last thing I want to mention about the Gantt chart is displaying a critical task. Now, a critical task or critical path is, according to the default settings, a set of tasks that have no space between them. So there's no day gaps or hour gaps between the tasks. The tasks themselves are critical. And a critical path is the shortest time a project can be completed. So if you've got set tasks, for example, you do a foundation or a concrete foundation, and it takes 5 days for that concrete to dry before you can do anything else to that task or on that task, that would be a 5-day critical task. You can't make it any shorter than that, no matter what you do. Other tasks can go on around those 5 days, but that 5-day period would be the critical task. Now, to show a critical task, on the Format tab, you've got this option, Critical. Now, because there's loads of gaps in this project, you can see that only the last team meeting has gone red because it's critical. That is probably, if I put that to 1 day, that's now gone red because that's the last task, but it can't show it red because it's got 0 duration, so that's how that one's gone red. Now, if I delete these team meetings, so I'm just going to delete those off. Now we get a load more tasks going critical. So these are all critical. These ones are not critical because there's a gap there, a 2-day gap there that could move forward on. Likewise with that one. But again, it's showing you critical. I've killed a task there, haven't I? Go to develop project. I think that was product. Okay, now when you do delete tasks, I'll just remind myself, people tend to just click there and press delete. Now what happens there is all this is left behind if you do it like that. So what you need to do, if I just do undo, you need to highlight the whole row and then press delete, and then that will get rid of it. And then if you can do undo, if I want to move a task, I can click on this bit and then use this tool to move it to wherever I want, and then undo that if I don't want to do that. Now on the Gantt chart itself, you can actually move tasks. So I'm just going to come down a little bit on there so you can see this better. If I sit my mouse on this task, I can push that forward and move it into next week. Now that's gone red now because that is the only critical task. There's a gap there, so it's showing red. I'll just take that critical off for a minute. Now when I've done that, it's the same as me changing this day manually, so we get the same thing coming up in the information column, a little moderate constraint. Now, if you sit your mouse on the front of that task, you can accidentally start doing percentage complete on it. So you have to be quite careful where you sit your mouse. Let's do undo on that. If you sit your mouse on the front end of that, you can accidentally extend it. So I'm not saying don't move it with the mouse, but just be careful where you sit with the mouse pointer when you are trying to move it. This is quite an easy one to pick up because it's quite long. But if that was a very small task like 2 hours, you could easily get the wrong symbol and then you are doing not what you think you're doing. So guys, that's the end of this module. I hope you've enjoyed it. What I want to talk about in this module is how you can create your own calendar and how you can modify a pre-existing calendar. So the way project works is that you have on the project tab a calendar, change working time. The timings that are set here come through from options. If I just click into options so you can see where they are. So on the schedule option, you can see the default time, start time and end time, and the hours per day, etc., etc. So that's where it's getting its information from. You can change those if you wish, or you can just edit these calendars. So the default calendars you get are 24 hours, a night shift, and the standard project calendar, which is this one. If I go on to work weeks, you can see those default options coming through to all of these days, and Saturday being a non-working day and Sunday being a non-working day. Now, when you change this calendar, any resource that you create will just copy this calendar, and that calendar or this calendar will be their calendar. However, there may be occasions where you need to create your own calendar for a particular resource set, which I'm going to show you in a second. But first off, let's just explain how that works. Now, on the exceptions tab, there's work weeks, there's exceptions. You can put things like Christmas breaks or bank holidays. So if I just put Christmas break for this year, say we break up on the 23rd and we come back on the 28th of December, see that colours in, and so there is a normal working day with the default timings. There is a non-working day now based on this exception. In the work weeks, you can do this as well. So there's the default working times that I've already shown you, but you can also do this. For example, let's say in the summer you're in a hot country and people don't work the same hours. So let's say the 1st of June 2021 until the 1st of October 2021, which just happens to be a Friday. The working times for that period, which is all coloured up there now, because it's really, really hot, so I'll just highlight all of these, just down to Friday. Set the specific working time, so tick that. And I'll delete this bottom block, and let's say we start work at 6, because it's quite cool still. I'll just get in cursor in there. Change that to 06. And we finish at 1300 or 1400. Let's make it 1400. Okay, so during that period, this will automatically clock over to take those timings. During this normal period or any other period outside of that, it will be the default timings. So there's the exception. So you'd put bank holidays and factory shutdowns and things like that in this list. Now if I click OK to that and go and create myself a resource, when I create a resource, I'll just create Bob. And the only reason I've typed Bob is because it's only 3 letters. If I double click into Bob, change working time, you can see this is just a resource calendar for Bob. Base calendar is the standard calendar, which I've just changed 2 seconds ago. So if I come down to December, you can see it's picking up the holiday that I set on the base calendar. It's just a complete copy of this. Now if I cancel this off and cancel it again, what you can do, let's say you want Bob to be able to work in December. So if I try and put this task to December, the 23rd, for example, that day, It's telling me that that's a non-working day. Do you want to set it as a working day? Not really, I don't. So it's forcing me to move it to the next working day, which is Tuesday the 29th. Just leave that for a second. What I'm going to do is create a calendar for engineers. And let's say Bob is an engineer. So going back up into change working time, create new calendar. So I'm going to call it engineers. I'm going to have it as a new base calendar, so it's not a copy of that. Or I could leave it as a copy of that because I'm not going to change the timings. Click OK. Click OK. Nothing's getting done. I'm not doing the Christmas break. Click OK. Now if I go to Bob, I can set Bob to have that calendar as his base calendar. Engineers. And then if I come down to December, whoops, went past it, is able to work. I'll click OK. OK. Now, obviously, this task still won't let me select December the 23rd, even though if I put Bob on it, let's have a look. Let's put Bob onto that. Bob's on it, so he's able to work on the 23rd, but the task itself ignores that, still wanting me to move the task to the 29th. So what you have to do is you need to double click on task C and get yourself onto the advanced tab, which I am on, and then assign a calendar to this task. So I'm going to assign that calendar engineers, and sometimes you might want to tick that if you've got like a machine running for 24 hours 7 days a week. You might want to have that tick so no resource allocation affects the actual running of the machine. So I'll click OK to that. Now this should now let me select the 23rd of December because this calendar has not got any exceptions on it. So there you go, it allows me to select the 23rd of December, even though for the base calendar that is a non-working time. So this engineer, Bob, can come into work on the 23rd and do whatever he has to do. And if I change the duration to 3 days, he should still be able to work because that's allowed on this calendar. So that's a quick look at calendars. That's all I want to talk about in this session. So that's the end. I'll see you on the next one. In this session, I want to talk about creating a repeating task along the same line. I have quite a lot of clients ask if you can show the same process going on the same line rather than coming down as separate tasks. So that's what I want to show you today, and this is how you do it. So first of all, in fact I'll call it process. So call it process, and let's say it's a 2-day process which repeats 3 times. So there's your first one, it's on there. Now I want it to repeat on Thursday and Friday there and there, the next 2 weeks going on, so 3 altogether. What you have to do is double click on the white to get into the bar styles, or if you don't want to do that or you find that difficult, because sometimes I was doing this session yesterday, people were double clicking on the white and it was just creating tasks. It's a bit of a fault, that is. So if you double click and it creates a task, it doesn't matter, you can go format and then format again and get bar styles from there. But whichever way you do it, you need this box. And then scroll down to the bottom of this list, and what we have to do is create 2 additional lines. So process, I'll call it. You get this shape where you can change this shape, so I'm going to change the color to red and the end to an arrow going that way, and then same for the middle bit. I'll put it green, and then I'll have an end shape and then red. In fact, I'll do that one red as well. Red, yeah, a terrible color, there it is. I don't particularly like that color, but there you go. Now you have to select what type of task you want to show this for. So this is going to be for normal tasks. And then this is the key bit. You have to change the fields. So you can't use this task start, these two, start and finish. You can't use those. So you'll have to use the field called start 1. So start 1 and finish 1. So I already put that in there for us. Now, but you have to be careful again with this, because these fields get used when you're saving, not baselines, but saving I'll just show you in a minute, just come out of that. If I go to project and set baseline, so interim plans use these start and finish fields. So if you've been using this, you can't do what I'm about to show you. So these are quite old now. Most people just save baselines and use these. But just be careful, because if there's information in these fields, you're going to overwrite that information. So I'll just cancel that off. Come back into this. So that was the first one down the bottom there. And then I'm going to repeat that for the second one. So we'll still call it process, call it process 1. I'll do the same little diagram. Arrow going right, colour red, colour green, and red, and shape pointing right. I'll click OK to that. And no, I'll select this first, sorry, normal. And then now you need to select start 2, and finish 2. So it's going to give you a separate set of data. Click OK to that. Now at the moment there's nothing there because we haven't actually done anything. We need to insert those columns. So insert column, right click at the top, insert column, type S to get to the S's. You want start 1, and then you want finish 1, insert column, type F, finish 1, and then you want start 2, insert column, S, start 2, and insert column, finish 2. And then you now populate with the dates. So I said the 23rd and the 24th for the first one, and then you get your little symbol. And then the week after that would be the 30th and the 1st of May, and you get your little symbol after that. Now this table, you can save this table so you can quickly access it at a later date. To do that, you go View, Tables, save this table as a new table, and I'll call it Process. Okay, then because I've messed up the entry table, I'll just get rid of these 4 fields, these 4 columns, just delete those off. And then in the tables list you have process, entry, sorry, I've done that wrong, get rid of that. I've probably killed this off now for process. I have, so I'll just have to add those back again. So insert start 1, insert finish 1, and insert start 2, and insert finish 2, like so. So that is the process table. Yep, so if I click on entry, entry's back to normal. Process is sitting up there, and you can quickly click into it. So there's entry, and then you've got process. So you need process to actually populate. If you've got other similar sort of tasks coming down there, you would need the process table on, so you could fill in the relevant dates. And if you need more repeating tasks like that on the same line, you would have to create additional lines down here, and then you would need to insert the columns if you wanted more repeats. But for the additional ones, if I let's try putting a process 1 there, just leave it on 1 day. You just start populating this in the same way, 23rd, 24th, and there you go. Now when you save a table, so if I go back to more tables, if you look at the organizer, you can see your table is there, but it's also in the global template. So in theory, if I close this down, come out of this, cancel this, do Control N for new, go to tables, there's my process table, so it's still there. And if I show you in the more tables organizer, and then you can see processes in the global template. So if you didn't want that, you would have to make sure you're not on it, otherwise it won't let you delete it, but you can just delete it and get rid of it through this organizer box. So that was how to create repeating tasks on the same line. In this module I want to talk about a hammock task. So what I've got on the screen is 3 examples of hammock tasks. Now in this little text box I've put a description of what a hammock task is. Basically it has no set duration. The duration of a hammock task is derived from the start of another unrelated task, so we're not talking about links here, and the end of a second unrelated task. So this example here, that's the hammock task. The start of the hammock task is derived by the start of task B, and the end of it is derived by the end of task C. Same on that one, and the one at the bottom is slightly different in the fact that the hammock is in the middle, and that's more of a classic way of doing it. So we don't know how long this is going to be, but it's going to be the length between these 2 tasks. Now that could be the start and end of the project, or it could be the start and end of a particular phase of the project. This is quite often used to show costs, or in this example I've called this file scaffolding. How long does the scaffolding have to be up for? Don't know. Depends how long the job starts, how long the job is. So how long does it take from the start of this task to the finish of that task, whatever that is the length of time the scaffolding would have to be in place. Just an example. If you're not into scaffolding, obviously that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm not into scaffolding either. But now what you have to do is use copy and paste special and paste link with these tasks. So if I replicate these, so if I just type my 3 sets of tasks, task A, task B, task C. So if I do the top option, so if I'll call that one hammock. So the start of the hammock is derived from the start of task B, let's say. So you click on to task B, start, Control C, copy, and you click on to the hammock start, and you can either right click or paste special is what you need, paste link. Okay, so those 2 are now linked together, so I'm going to color those in yellow, and then you want the end date from task C, copy, paste special, paste link. Okay, so those 2 are linked, so I'll just change those to a different color, blue, light blue, and that one. So that's how you set the thing up. Now when any of these task durations change, so if task B, the start duration changes, and the end duration changes, or either or, the hammock should react to it. So at the minute they're all starting at the same on the same date. Now in some versions of project this automatically updates. It has a little bit of a delay, but if it doesn't update automatically on you, what you need to do is just close and reopen the file, which is what I'm going to do. I'll show you that in a second, and it will ask you to update links, and then you can do that. So let's change something. If I say this, well, let's say the end of the project is, or this task, it's not the end of the project, this task moves forward to next Friday. I don't want to have a link, so clicking OK to that, and then OK to that. So now the hammock task should move across and show that distance, and it does take a little bit of time. So I'm just going to save this and close it down and just open it up again. So that'll just speed this bit up. Open scaffolding. It should come up and say, do you want to update links? I say yes, and then it should update the links, and you can see the hammock task has gone across to the end of task C. So that worked okay. Now if I come back down and do another example, so I'll do the example where the hammock is in the middle. So I'll do task A, hammock, task B. So I can't have lowercase, it was my heading. So hammock. So this time the start of this task is going to drive that one. So copy that and into this one, paste special, paste link. Okay, and I'll just color code those two again. This time they can be blue, and then the end of this task will dictate the end of that task. So if I copy that one, paste special onto this one, paste link, OK, color those two a different color, so those are the two linked ones. I'll go for yellow again. Alright, so the duration, so at the moment everything's on the same day, so let's say the start goes forward a week, I don't want to link, and the end of this set of tasks goes into next week, say, no link. Okay, now the hammock should come across, move across and sit between these two. So if I just save and close this down and then reopen it, scaffolding, yes, I do want to update links, and there you can see it's moved across, sitting between them. Now the time you wait for this to do it automatically depends on your computer, but sometimes it's just a couple of seconds, other times it's a minute or so. So I'd rather just close and reboot the thing to get it to do it automatically. Update, I'll click it and I'll force it to happen, because I don't like to look at schedules that aren't accurate. But that is how you set up a hammock task. So I hope that has been of use to you, and I'll see you in the next session. This next section is all about linking tasks and adding resources. First of all, I'm going to highlight all the tasks, and then I'm going to click on this link icon on the task tab. Now immediately that places the task numbers in the predecessors column, and I get a list shown on the Gantt chart. If I go to the format tab and put critical tasks on, you'll see that these are all critical because there's no time gap between them. Now that may be the case in some projects, but for a whole project to be critical like that is quite unusual, so I'm going to delete that off. But that is a quick way of doing linking tasks, and it's also something that you can do for a group of tasks, 3 or 4 tasks, rather than the whole thing. But I'm going to do this manually, and you can see how it works. So we've got install software room as our first task. So test software room 1 follows install software room 1, so I can put a 2 in there. And then train software room 1 follows test, so I can put a 3 in there, task 3. And then room 1 complete follows task 4. Now I'm not going to say install software room 2 follows room 1 complete, so I'm just going to leave that one for a while and we'll come back to that one. Test software room 2 follows install software room 2, so I can put a 6 in there. And then train on software room 2 follows test software room 2, so I can put a 7 in there. And then room 2 complete follows train on software room 2, so I can put an 8 in there. So I have got 2 sets of steps, as I call them, steps there, so I could have grouped those and clicked the chain link and that would have worked. Now project complete has to follow 2 tasks. It has to follow train on software room 1 complete, which is task 5, and room 2 complete, which is task 9. So to do that, I type 5, 9. And you see the link there. Now back to this one. When you type in the numbers like this, it's putting the default link, which is a one task finishes before the next one starts, or an FS link. But I don't want that to be the case for this one. So this little scenario I want to paint for you is that 2 engineers are going to do these tasks. When the senior engineer appears, he will dictate when the junior engineer can start doing his tasks. So I'm going to type 2 SS there, which means start to start, and when I click away you can see how that works. So the line comes out of the top task and points into the bottom task. So basically the start of the top task will dictate when the start of this bottom task can happen. So for example, if the chief engineer is delayed, and if I pull all these tasks forward a bit, everything is either pushed forward by that top task or pushed forward by this link here for this second set of tasks. I'll just undo that to bring them back. Now typing 2SS, how did I know I could do that? If I double click onto this task and go onto the predecessors tab, you can see the full name of it there, start to start with the abbreviation SS. Now if I drop this little arrow down, you can see the other links that's in there. So the finish to start was the default one. Now I don't need to put FS on there unless I'm going to qualify it with some lead or lag time, which I'll do shortly. Every other one though, SS, FF for finish to finish, and SF for start to finish, I do need to qualify so the computer knows what type of link I am doing. So I'll leave that on start to start, click OK to that, and I'll just go through the other types. So I'm just going to type a few tasks down the bottom here to do the finish to finish one, and then the start to finish one. So these will all be 1-day tasks, and then let's see the finish to finish one. So task B is going to be driven by task A using the finish to finish link. So I need to type in there 12 FF, and when I press enter you can see the link. So the finish of task A will dictate when task B can finish. So a little example of that would be task A is installing plug sockets into a room. Task B is testing those sockets. So I can't finish task B until task A is finished. Now there might be a bit of a delay on this task. They probably won't finish exactly at the same time. So I'm just going to show you how you put a delay on a task. I'm just going to double click into that. So lag and lead. So lag is what I want. I'm going to put 1H for hour and click OK. And then you can see that. So the finish of that will dictate when that can finish, and there's a 1 hour delay. Now this one is a start to finish, so I'm going to type 15 SF, and now because this is going to go before the start date, it's going to ask me if that's okay. I click OK to that, and you can see how the start of this task will dictate when this one can finish. Now if I just pull that forward a little bit so you can see it better. This is quite a common task, although I have seen some textbooks where it says it's not very common. This is like just-in-time delivery, so the start of this dictates when that finishes. So I could be starting to dig a foundation hole. I want the wet concrete delivery to finish as I am due to start, or I want the catering, the start of the catering to be laid out in a wedding reception to dictate when the transport for that finishes. So there are lots of different uses of this. The benefit of this is if I pull this forward, sometimes people use this as a milestone. That could be a handover to a different department or a different company. If it's delayed, it just pulls everything with it. So depending on what type of business you're in, depends whether you use these type of tasks or you would use these ones as default follow-ons. If I pull that forward, you see what's happened there? That's moved forward, but this one hasn't, so there's left a big gap there. Whereas when I pull this one forward, it always pulls everything with it. Now I'm not saying that's not, you can't do that, because you could obviously move that one forward and that one forward and so on and so on. But it's a bit more of an effort to keep on top of your tasks. Let's pull these back to the start position. Now I'm going to do another task, task E. I'm going to do a 5-day task, and then I'm going to do task F, which is also going to be a 5-day task, and I'm just going to link these. So that's just going to be 18, normal link. So let's say in this example, task E is paint the undercoat of a room, and task F is paint the second coat of a room. Do I need to wait until the whole of the undercoat is done before I can start doing the second coat? So I'm going to say not. So if I go in there and go -4, for D is a default, so days it'll come back. I'm basically saying there, look, after 1 day of the task E, I can start doing task F. Now I personally don't like the way it does that, where it doubles round. So I'm going to change this link to be 18SS plus 1. See what that looks like. So now the start of that task dictates when this can happen. So if the undercoat is delayed, so will that be, and that will be pushed forward. One more 5-day task. Sometimes there are occasions when you want to split a task. Sometimes a computer does that depending on what you're asking it to do, but I'm going to go back onto the task tab, and then this little tool here is split task. Click on split task. This is just a guide. When I put my mouse onto the task, that becomes active and you can see the date as I move forward. So if I want to split from Wednesday the 15th, if I click and hold and move forward, now I've got 2 sets of dates, and I'm going to Wednesday the 22nd, and I'm going to let go there. That's me creating that split. At any time I can bring that back. If I didn't like that split, I can just pull that back together and do it again, or I can split it multiple times if it's a long task. That's how you split a task. Now I'm just going to delete these tasks across the bottom. Now, constraints. I want to put a constraint onto the project complete date just to show you how that works. So I'm going to double click on project complete. I'm going to the advanced tab, which is where they are, and these are the constraints. So that is the default setting. I'm going to say this must finish on the 15th. See what happens here. 15th. Okay to that. That constraint's on. So basically this is all red, and now because I've put a constraint on there, there is no slack in this project. If I try to move that top task forward a day, it comes up, says this action will, not may or not could, will cause a scheduling conflict. Now I may want to continue, but if I do continue, I must remove the constraint and put another one on, or I cancel, which I'm going to do, and get somebody else maybe to do that task. Now you have to be careful with constraints, because if you put constraints on maybe all your milestones, for example, people tend to think like that. You're basically tying yourself up and allowing very, very little slack in a project plan. There's another feature you could use that's more visual than just putting a constraint on, and will give you a visual indicator if you're going past the constraint or you've hit that constraint, and that is a deadline marker. So I'm just going to double click on that. This is deadline marker. We're still on the advanced tab, so I'll put this into the future. So I'll put this onto the 22nd first off. So this is 22nd, and you get, for this task, you get a green arrow appearing on the screen. Now if I put that into the past, if I just double click onto that and put that into the past, if you go past that deadline marker, so if I go back to the 7th, click OK, you've gone past that, you get a warning in the information column which tells you you've gone past your deadline marker. So that's more of a visual indicator for a project manager to, if you get close to this deadline marker and you haven't done certain tasks, you need to flag that up maybe. Now to remove both of these, it's the reverse process. Double clicking on that task and just clearing that data out of that box will remove the deadline marker. And then double clicking on this task, changing this back to the default setting, which is as soon as possible for this project, which is going from forward from a start date, and then again deleting the date out of that box. That will remove both of those constraints and deadline marker. So that is the end of this phase. In this module, I want to talk about lead and lag time. So first of all, let's create a couple of tasks, task A and task B, both 1-day tasks. Now normally when you link a task, you just put the predecessor number in there. So if I want this to link to task 1, I'll just put a 1 in there, and there it links. Now lead time and lag time, if you're using the default task type, which is follow on, one task finishes and the next task starts, you have to qualify it with the FS prefix. Now, how do I know it's FS? If I double click onto task B and go to the predecessors tab, you have the types in this list here, and you've got the abbreviations at the end. So FS for the default, which you do not need to do if you're just having a straightforward link. But if you're going to put a lag on or a lead on, so a lag is a positive number, which is basically a delay, and a lead is a negative number, you do have to qualify it with these: FS, SS, FF, SF, whichever one you're using. So if I click OK to that one, what I would have to do to put a 1 day lag on here, I would have to go 1 FS plus 1. One FS plus 1, and then you get the extra day lag. Now, if I change that to a minus, 1 FS minus 1, you get the lead. So I'll do that as -2. Now I've got my entry bar up here, so I'll do -3 actually, and go forward back into the history, so it's asking me that. So there is lead time on that. Now, if I just do a couple more tasks, task C, task D, if I do a finish to finish link on this one, so that is going to be 4FF, you can see it does the link. So if I want to add a delay, a lag, I'm going to put a plus number on that, plus 2 days. If I want a lead, it's a minus number, -2 days. Now nothing seems to have happened because that's the start of the project and it didn't go back, even though this one did. What you have to do in this one, if I just push this one forward into next week, you can see it does the lead in time. So if I click on that again and do the -4 days, comes back to the start date of the project. And if I go 4FF plus 4, it goes the other way. So if I do on this one 2SS, that's the start. Cancel that, not 2SS, 7SS. That's a start to start link, so this task dictates when that one can start. So if I do a 7SS plus 1, that gives you the lead. If I go up there and put -1, it's doing that. Now 2 more, task E and F, task G and H. And if I link these together with an SF, so it's going to be 10SF plus 1. So start to finish. So this task, the start of this dictates when that finishes. So if I put plus 4, you can see that. So this one would more likely have a delay on it. So if I put a lead on it, should I say, if I put -4, it's going back in time, -4 days. So it's just basically a plus or minus on the link that gives you the lead or the lag. And the last one, if I just do one more, let's do a 5-day task. Now if I split this task, just grab the split tool and just push it into next week, and then link a task to that, leave it as question mark. So if I go, what was it, 13FS back to the normal one plus 1, so it links to this part of the task, not this part of the task. Now if I wanted that task to be linked but to sit in there, I would have to put a lead on it, so of something a minus, say 8 days. Now it's sitting in there, and that's not a great symbol. I don't like the look of that, but what you could probably do if you wanted something to sit there is change that link to be 13SS plus 2, so then it's sitting, or plus 1, so it's starting on Monday, and it's dictated by this. If I move this, this is pushing that one along. Now there's a useful feature you can use lead or lag with, is to show a critical path. So sometimes if I just go task 1, task 2, so you've got a 1-day task and then another 1-day task. They're just following on. Start off with 17. But what you need is a 5-day drying time. So say that is pour wet concrete, and this one is to establish a building frame on that concrete. What you can do is do a lag on this of 5 days, and then it will show a critical path. So what I need to do first off is get rid of all of this. Just delete these two off at the top with space. And if I put the critical path indicator on, critical tasks, at the moment they're both red. But if I move this 5 days, so it's to Friday, only this one has gone red. This one is now not showing a critical path because there's slack there. You can't have a critical path if there's more than 1 day slack. If you want to change that, you can change that in options. At the moment it's on the default setting. However, if I just undo that, if I want to put a lag on that, so if I'll go 1 FS plus 5, this should have been plus 4, but never mind. It gives you the indicator that is a critical path. So this is just drying time, so you could show a critical path by using the lag feature. So that's just a quick look at lead and lag. If I just double click into task 2, this is where it is, and as you can manually change that if you don't want to type, or you can't remember what to type. That's how you'd have to do it. Double click in, use these arrows up and down to increase or decrease lead or lag. But that's the end of this session, so hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one. This next section is all about adding resources to the resource sheet and then allocating resources to tasks. We'll also have a quick look at task types. First of all, I'm going to create a resource list. So I'm going down onto these 4 buttons in the right hand corner. I'm going to click on the resource sheet option and start adding my resources. Now I'm typing the first name. You can type the first and second name of a resource if you wish. You can also use appointments like administrator, trainer, etc., etc., although that does negate some of the features of Microsoft Project. I'm going to have Microsoft Office as a resource, have computers as a resource, and paper, hotel, and contractors. Same rules apply when you're doing resources as with tasks. Depending on what detail you want to go down to, depends how many and how much resource you list. There are 3 main types of resource: work, material, and cost. So I'm going to just select material for Microsoft Office. I'm going to pull that down for computers and paper. Hotel I'm going to set to cost and show you how that works later on. Contractors I'm going to leave as work. Now in the material column, if I type an abbreviation for Microsoft Office, MSO, PCs for computers, and PAC for paper, those are the labels that will appear on the Gantt chart when you add that resource to a task. Now, because I'm using names there, I'm going to put the appointments in this group column. So I'm going to say that these guys at the top, these first two, are trainers. So trainer, and then Bill can be an admin person, and then Ben can be the manager. Now, this allows you to filter when you create reports. So I could do a filter on trainers, or admin, manager, etc. If they're set to 100%, they're available all the time, 50%, 50% of the time, and so on and so on. You don't get that option when you've set a resource to material. I'm going to give each of these 4 people the same rate of pay and overtime rate, £10 an hour and £15, highlighting that, bringing those down. And I'm also going to say every time I allocate Microsoft Office to a task, it's going to cost me £100. PCs though, I'm going to put that as a fixed cost of £500. That was always going to be £500 no matter how many times or how many PCs I add. Paper, £1 an hour. Now the cost resource type doesn't give you the option to put a figure in this box. When you add the cost field to a task, that's where you add the amount. So you wouldn't necessarily know what hotel cost was until you actually booked the hotel cost in. Contractors, I'm going to put at £10 an hour. They are contractors, so they don't get overtime. So next column across after cost per use is accrue. So this can be prorated or at the start or at the end of a project. It's default at prorated. I'm going to leave it as that. Then you've got your calendars. You've got your 3 basic calendars, and obviously you can create your own calendar if you need to. And a column for cost codes if you use cost codes, and options there to add additional information or additional columns. And once you've got your task list typed out, you can then go to your Gantt chart and start allocating resources to tasks. So I've clicked on the resource tab, assign resources, and there's my resources. It's not the only way to do it, but I like this box because this box floats on the screen. I can click down these tasks, the task name appears at the top, and then I can allocate resources. So on this first task, install software room 1, I want to assign Anne and Ben, 2 people, and 2 computers, assign. Now that should stay at 500 because I said that is a fixed cost, so yes it does. 2 licenses, assign Microsoft Office. This will change. 2 licenses should go to £200, and paper, assign, and I want that to be, let's say they use 2 packs of paper per hour, so that's how you factor that in, 2 per hour. That goes up to 16, so that's okay for that. Now all the costs, as you can see, are listed in this box, but what I can't see is a sort of overarching cost, so I'm going to change this table view to the cost table, and then that will give me the overarching cost. So 876 is what this is costing me so far. Test software room 1, I'm going to allocate Bill. He gets 1 computer, gets 1 license, and he uses a pack of paper per hour, so 1 per hour on there, and that's cost me 688. Next one down, training, I'm going to give that to the contractors, assign, and they don't need Microsoft Office, but they do need a hotel. So this is where you put the cost of that hotel in there. So let's say that was £250 for that hotel, and that's the contractors. And that is the process you go through to assign your resources. If you find that you've got something listed that you don't assign, you probably didn't need to have it listed in the first place. You can just go back to your resource sheet and delete it. So far this project, I'll just close that, is costing $18.94. Now if I go back to the resource sheet and double click on Anne, for example, and I will look at the resource in more detail. So when the resource information box comes up, when you double click, this is about Anne. You've got her availability at the bottom there. If I change that and say, for example, she's not available until the 27th, but thereafter she's available, if I click away from that and click OK, Because I've got Anne allocated already, she's flagging red, which is not good, so I'll just go back in there, take that off, put it back to NA, which means she's available from then on. But that's what that's for. Now on the right hand side you've got her calendar, so this works in the same way as a project calendar, so exceptions would be listed here, work weeks. If this changed, so if, for example, if I go into this and say on Fridays, she only works till 8 o'clock, she starts at 8 till 12, starts at 8, finishes at 12. If I click OK to that, click on any Friday, that will say there what the hours are. There's the normal hours. I'll go, she's actually gone red there, so I'm just going to go back and take that off. So click on Friday, use the default settings, click OK, back to default, and then OK. Next, across the top you've got costs, so this is used for where you've got increments depending on where or when you're working. So for example, there is the default, £10 an hour and £15. Let's say that Anne goes to a foreign country, and while she's in that foreign country she gets £12 an hour and £17 an hour overtime. When she comes back, a week after maybe, she goes back down to a basic of 10 and 15. And this can also be used for bulk buys. You may buy a pack of paper at £1 per pack, but if you buy 100 packs it's only a penny a pack and things like that. You can use these cost code tables for that. You've got quite a few there. The default one is A, and in each of these tables you've got quite a few rows. Next at the top you've got a notes tab, similar to tasks. You add a notes option there. I'm just going to give it a title, job spec, and then as we did before, you click on the little insert object and you can insert a document. I'm just going to insert a new blank Excel worksheet just for demonstration purposes. Click on the display's icon so it will look like that. Click OK. Because I've created a new one, this will actually sit in Microsoft Project. There it is. It actually says there worksheet in software implementation. I don't even need to save that really, it'll stay there. I could save it if I wanted to, but I don't need to because it will be saved within project. Next tab across you've got custom fields, so if we add any fields or create any custom fields, they would be listed in this box. We haven't done that, so there aren't any. Just click OK to that, and then that information is displayed there. The reason I did a title job spec is so you can see there's something there and what it is, because otherwise you just see the apostrophe that's at the bottom there, which doesn't really tell you anything, and you'd have to double click into it to find out what was there. Now, next little bit, I want to come back onto the Gantt chart and talk quickly about task types. So I'm just going to create 4 tasks: task A, task B, task C, and task D. And I'm going to put this table back to the entry tables. Don't need to look at the costs anymore. So we've got the information column. Now each of these tasks are going to be 1 day in duration. Now the default task type is fixed unit, but there are 2 other types which I want to show you now. If I just double click into task A, you can see that. So there you've got fixed units, fixed duration, fixed work, fixed units. Now next to fixed units you have this effort driven tick box, which is not ticked by default in this version of project, but in some older versions that is ticked, and you can also change that in options as well. And I just want to show you what happens when this box is ticked. So first off, I'll leave it unticked, so this is the default option. So I'm going to add Anne, assign in Anne, nothing happens. That was my first allocation. Don't worry about it going red, that's just because she's on these tasks further above. I assign Ben, nothing happens to that duration, so it stays the same. They're both doing 8 hours and both getting paid £80 each. Now if I remove both of those, so I remove those, double click back onto the task, go into the advanced tab and tick effort driven, so it's still fixed unit, but I'm going to tick effort driven, clicking OK to that. Now watch what happens. So I'll assign Anne. Nothing happens on the first one because that's my initial assignment, but when I assign Ben or anybody else, what happens, it will start driving the duration down. So there you go, assigned then it started driving the duration down. So they're now just doing 4 hours each on this task, and that's what that effort driven tick will do. Now sometimes you don't want the duration to change no matter how many people you put on the task. So if I do task B and change it to the next one, which is fixed duration, again you've got the tick on or off. I'll leave the tick off to start with and click OK, and I will assign an. Nothing happens. The duration is fixed at 1 day. Then nothing happens. They both get full pay. They're both doing 8 hours work. Now if I do something similar in task C, but this time fixed duration, put the tick on, tick is on, the duration can't change. So what does change? If I click OK to that, and then I do the same thing again, assign an, nothing happens. But now the tick is going to do something. So if I assign Ben, what it does is doesn't touch the duration, it's still 1 day. It drives down the hours. So in this case they're both doing 4 hours each. So that tick on a fixed duration task, the effort driven tick, will drive down the hours. Now the last one, task D, is what's called a fixed work task. Before I do that one, I just need to insert the work column. So insert column, type W to get to the W's at work. And then I want an example here of 10 hours work that I'm paying for over a 10-day period. So first off, into task D, I changed it to fixed work. Now when I do that, notice that you do not have the option of taking the tick on or off, or put it on or off, but it is on. So in terms of project, it will try and drive the duration down when you add extra resources. Let's see what happens. So if I add, let's do the criteria first. So 10 hours over a 10-day period. So if I add and, nothing will happen. So if I added Anne, Bill and Ben, nothing would happen either. If I added them all together, it's only when you add them individually that things start changing. But if I add another resource, it will start driving the duration down. The hours stays the same, but now the duration's changed. If I wanted that back at 10 days, I put it back at 10 days. But if I was going to do that initially, what I perhaps should have done is just highlighted 2 people or 3 people and assigned them as my initial allocation. It's something that takes a little bit of time to get used to, and creating these tasks like I've done there, A, B, C, D, and doing what we've just done in this example is a very good way of getting your head around how it all should work. And now that is the end of this module. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for your time. Hi guys, welcome to this module. In this module we're going to look at how to save a baseline and how to create reports. So first of all, just to recap where we are with this project, here's our task list, and here is our resource list. So most of these resources have been added and allocated to these tasks. What I'm going to do is change this table to the cost table so that we can see the cost of this project, which is £2,134 at the moment. The baseline column is blank. We're ready to save our baseline, so that column will shortly be populated. To save a baseline, you go to the Projects tab, Set Baseline, and then Set Baseline. And then you have the option to save a baseline. You have 11 options altogether. In older versions of Project there was just one baseline option, and you had several interim plan options, which basically just saved the start and finish dates. So baseline saves the start and finish dates, but also time phased work, costs and resource allocation. So that is all I need to do for this process. As soon as I click OK, the baseline column is filled in, so it's just at the moment it's just the same as the total cost column. Now I'm going to put this back to the entry table. Now what I recommend people do is not use this default Gantt chart while you're updating a project, but go on to the tracking Gantt, which can be found down the view bar on the left hand side, tracking Gantt, and then modify this table to show the tracking table. Now before I do that, I need to bring my tasks back into view. So on the tracking Gantt, you can see you have the percentage complete as a label, and your baseline is shown by this charcoal coloured bar. Your actual is the red bar. So I'm just going to move this across just to expose more of the table. So I want to change this table to the tracking table. So I'm going View, Tables, Tracking. Now, this isn't the only way that you can update a project plan, but it's the way that I teach in my classes, and I think it's great. Now we've got actual start and actual finish and actual duration and other fields that you can see there. I'm just going to add the baseline start field. So baseline start, so I know when it was planned to be start, and baseline finish, and then baseline duration columns. Baseline duration, like so. So I've got an idea what the actual start date was or finish date was and the duration was, so I can utilize these. I'm just going to get rid of this column, and then I'm ready to go. So the process is this. So to update this project, this task, install software room 1, I've got several options. Let's say it did start on the 13th, so I can click in there and select the 13th, so it started on time. But its actual finish time was not the 13th, let's say it was the 15th. So as soon as I put that finish date in, the 100% complete is populated, and the actual duration has changed to 3 days from the original baseline duration, which was 1 day, and that is reflected on the Gantt chart. Now, because install software room 2 is driven by that task, I would update that as well to represent the same. That's 100% complete. So that's one way you can do it. Another way, say test software room 2. Let's say that, so that is due to start, was due to start on the 15th, but obviously it's following on, was due to start on the 14th, was following on, it is now following on from the 15th, so it can't have started on the 14th. So if I say it started on the 16th, and instead of filling in the finish date, I just go to actual duration, say it was 2 days instead of the planned 1 day, you can see that moving along, and I'll do the same for this one. So its actual start was the 16th, and it was 2 days in duration. Now, whichever column you fill in affects the other column. I'm not a fan of just going down the 100% complete column or starting to put 10%, 20%, because it's not really accurate. And if you're always just filling in a task as 100%, what we're in effect saying is that your planned duration is always accurate. Whereas if you're doing the actual duration, it's more accurate, because if it says 2 days and it was planned to be 1 day, you've got a problem there. You was a day over, and that's got a cost implication. So although that's a quick way of filling in the percentage complete, it's quick, but it's not very accurate, and it gives a false result when you're reviewing projects. So I would avoid that, although it's not undoable, but sometimes you have to do it for speed, but I would try and avoid that if you can. Now, when we did the baseline, I told you you can save multiple baselines, so I'm just going to save another baseline just to show you how that process works. Baseline 1, the previous one was there, click OK, so that's took another snapshot in time. And then I'm just going to update one more task to show you this one. So let's say this one started on Monday the 20th, and it took 2 days, so that goes 100% complete. But I'm now going to go, there's an estimated 2 days left, so that's now going to knock that back down to 50%. So it was planned for 1 day, we did 2 days, but there's an estimated 2 days work left. Something's gone wrong on site. And now, before I do the same with the remaining tasks, I just want to have a look at this. So on the Format tab, I've got the option to display different baselines. So there's the original baseline, which is displayed. If I click on baseline 1, That's showing you the baseline 1 and the movement from that. Go back to baseline, and then same on the slippage, baseline. That shows you the slippage, baseline 1. There's not much there, just that last bit. And you can take those off altogether if you want. I'll leave that one on. Now there's also a Gantt chart that you can look at, which is called multiple baseline Gantt, which I'm just going to show you. View, other views, and then more views, and it's in this list, multiple baseline Gantt. We've only got 2. So there it shows you the baselines. The reason the lines are so thin is because obviously there could be 11 baselines there, but it's a very good view to see movement across a project. And as all Gantt charts, you can add labels on the end of these if you wish. At the top there, maybe you might want to add what baseline that is. That's baseline 1, the red one, and the blue one is the original baseline. I'm just going to go back to the normal Gantt chart, and in fact I want to go back to the tracking Gantt. Sorry. Tracking Gantt. Now, while you're running your project, you probably want to run reports. So just have a quick look at some of the reports that you have in project on the reports tab. So you've got these options: dashboard, resources, costs, in progress, and the ability to create your own reports. So if I just look at some of the dashboard ones, I'll try a burn down report. That's a burn down report for this particular project. Doesn't give us much information. The project's quite short in terms of time, so it's not showing much information. If I go back to reports and maybe let's have a look at cost overview. So this is telling me that the project is 75% complete. The cost is £3,374. I've got £810 still to spend. So actual costs, and then you can see the graphs there and what the implication is in terms of cost variance on this one, £920. Another one, let's have a look at resources, resource overview. I quite like this one. So it basically tells you what work's been done against baseline work, so you can see quite clearly there a lot more work has been done or is planned to be done as opposed to the baseline. And then this is the percentage work complete for each resource, and then you've got that same information in a table. Now just go back up to reports, costs, so for cash flow, remaining cost, actual cost, work performed, budgeted cost, work performed, budgeted cost, work scheduled in this table. So all these reports are great, but I always find it easier to create your own report. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. And once you've created a report, they'll appear in recent or custom, depending when you was last into those. So I'm going new report, and I'm going to start off with a blank report. I'll call it Steve. Click OK to that, and then we get a blank piece of paper basically, with the design tab at the top giving us some options. So the first one I'm going to do is give myself a little chart, clustered column I'll do, and then the default that comes in is this one. So I've got that. Now let's get a table from this, get a little table. So that's a table. Now I might not want all of that, so let's have a look at what I can knock off there. So I've got options here. So do I need the name? Yes, I do need a name. I don't need this start button, so I'm just going to remove the start and finish fields. So now I've just got the title and the percentage complete, and maybe I can just move that, the whole thing, across to the other side, and maybe make that a little bit smaller, like so. Move the graph down. And so this graph is looking at tasks. Let's have a look at creating another graph, same graph, but this time I'm going to change this one to look at the resources. So resources at the top there, so this is all the resources and the hours. Now this is where filters might come in, because I've got all resources, but I could filter by group, or create new filters. Resource work, let's put that one on, so that's filtered just the work resources as opposed to the equipment, which probably doesn't make much sense, but you've got your work resources there. These are the 3 default fields, but you have got the option to put other fields in there. If I come down this list, you've got the 3 ticks there. Tick work variance, and I'm going to tick that work variance one off. I don't want that on, but basically you go through these options and tick things on or off depending on what you want to look at. So, and then as always with graphs and things, you can format those from at the top there to make them pretty. And once you've saved this stuff, you've got a report that you can look at. So this tells you all the information that you require. I'm just going to click on this graph to change this graph slightly and have a look at level. So I'm on level 1 at the moment. If I go all subtasks, that shows me everything, which is slightly too much information. So I'll go back to level 1. I've got active tasks, and again I can select all tasks. Not much difference in there because they've not changed. So groups, I could use critical maybe. Critical yes, critical no. So these are the same sort of things you can put onto tables. Just going to take that off, no group, and you've got the sort option there. Now I'm just going to create another table at the bottom, and so that's the same information as before. Let me just push that down a bit, but on this one, if I scroll down, I do want to put not project summary, all subtasks. So that's going to give me a list of all the tasks. So that's just basically like your Gantt chart, if you like. And you could add columns in there if you so wish by just ticking the columns on, and probably make that slightly wider so to accommodate the resource lists. And there you go. And then you can then close this report or save this report, or I'm just going to go into a different view, gone onto the Gantt chart, and then if I want to get back to that report, it's in custom, there it is, and this will reflect any changes in the project. If I go back to report, it will also be in recent use. So that's basically how to save a baseline and one way to update your tasks and then create reports. And that's the end of this module. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. In this module we're going to look at inserting sub-projects into a master project file and then creating a project report that will show the allocation of resources across projects. So we've got 2 projects, and you can see there project A, project B, project A, project B, and project A, project B. Each person working on 2 different projects, and this one's showing you the start and finish dates. So to create all of this, I'll start from the beginning. I'll just delete these 2 projects and reinsert them. So to create a sub-project, you are going to the project tab, clicking on sub-project, and then finding the project that you want. So this is in documents. So project A and project B, there's project A. Same process for project B. Find project B, bring them in. Now if I expand these projects, it shows you the people that's on these projects. If you update this project or this project, the original projects will reflect that change. I'm just going to change this one to have 2 different people as a resource, so you can see the differences there. Now if I indent these underneath the master, so back to tasks, indent, you can see then this picks up the timeline across the top. So all of these are just single day projects for this example. Now to create a report, I'll select report and new report. I'll pick a blank one to start with. I'll call it report 1. Okay, and it gives me a blank paper with that title. So let's got myself a column chart. Now the default comes in showing you the hours. So what I want to do here is take off actual work and remaining work, just leave work on there. If I change the level to show all subtasks, it gives you a breakdown of the work, but it doesn't actually tell you the projects. So if I then go to the group option, now I've created some groups here, but if I just do a new group and call this projects, and then from the field list select projects and then apply, and it gives you the project A and project B. If I then change the level, because that's showing level 1 to all subtasks, it breaks down between the 2 projects. So that's the first one. Now let's create a second chart and do it in terms of resources. So again, I'm change this to resources, take off actual work and remaining work just to keep it simple. Obviously you can leave those on. Now there's Bob and Bill from one of the projects because I didn't delete them off the resource sheet, but it doesn't matter. There you can see Paul and Steve and Bob and Bill there. Now again, I need to group this, so I've already got one called project, so group by project, shows project A, project B, select all subtasks, and it tells you who's on which project, project B, project A, so that's the second one. And then to show that as a table, if I add a table, there's my table, just move that down a bit, and change this to resources, so it shows you the resources. I don't want start and finish, I just want work on this one. So it gives me the hours worked, and again group by projects, project A, project B, and then show all subtasks. So that should break that down for me by project and how many hours worked or planned work for these resources. So that's a very quick overview of how to create a report that will report across multiple projects. But remember, the first step is you need to create your master project file, insert your sub-projects where they're independent resources, and then you will be able to create the reports that you wish. Report 1, or the one that I had previously, showing you that information. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for your time. In this module, I want to have a quick look at how to run visual reports. So in Project, you have all these reports that are great, but you've also got this legacy button to visual reports to send data into Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Visio. So before I do that, let's have a quick look at what we have on the screen. This is a very small project. I've already saved the baseline on this project. So baseline, set baseline, just saved that. So it's got a baseline. Don't want to update that, cancel that off. I've also already updated some tasks, so you can see these tasks have got some completions. These are time phase tasks. I've allocated resources to some of these tasks, and these tasks are all linked together. What I want to do now is send this data into Excel first off, and then Visio, so you can see how it works. So first off, Visual Reports, you get this box coming up with 2 ticks at the top for Excel and Visio. If I take the tick off Visio, you'll see there's a lot less. If I put the tick back on Visio and take the tick off Excel, do it the other way around, there's not as many. So if we both ticks on, it looks quite cluttered. Now you can see at the bottom there's one called Work, this one. I've created that report, but I'll show you how to do that in a second. So if I go to Resource Summary and click on this Resource Main Work Report, I've got the option at the bottom there to change the timeline or the time period, and I can also edit this. If I click on Edit Template, these are the fields that will be available when I run this report, and I can take these off or put some other ones on. I can also add any custom fields that I may have done from this list. I'm not going to do any of that, so I'll just cancel that. And then I'm just going to view this, and this should open up Excel as a pivot table. I'll just make this full screen so you can see this, and I'll just make my screen a little bit smaller so it shows the whole chart. So what you have there is a chart, and then on the next tab along you have the pivot table with all the little tick boxes that you would normally expect on a pivot table. I'm just going to tick actual costs on there, and then when you come back to your chart, the actual cost column should have been added. You can change this graph if you don't like this, which I don't. So if I just go to Design at the top there and change chart type, just want it as a normal clustered column, click OK to that, and then you can see this side by side. If you don't want any of these on, so if I take one of these ticks off, it just removes that tick. If I take the cost off, and maybe you've got work there, so actual work, and where's baseline work, and then you can save this as a report and use it on and on as many times as you want. But for now, I'll just close that one down. I'm not going to save it. Don't save it. And then I'm going to select one to run into Visio. So if I go to All and take the tick off Excel, you've got this one, Basic Report or Baseline Report. This is going to drop it into a pivot diagram. Just click in View. Should open up Visio, and then it's a case if you manipulating the diagram in Microsoft Visio. So what you have down this left hand side is the categories and then the totals that you might want to display. So I want to add tasks, so it should add the tasks along the bottom there. So at the moment it's got work and baseline work and cost and baseline cost. If I tick this one, actual, it just adds that actual work column in at the bottom there, so you can just add in extra bits and bobs. If you don't like this, you can delete it off. This is what a pivot diagram is all about. You can just manipulate stuff as you wish. You click on different elements and add these features if you're required to see that information. So that's dropping it into Visio, so I'll close that one down, and I'm not going to save it. Now what I would like to do is create my own report, so I'm going to create a new template, and I want an Excel template, and I'll do it on resource usage, and then you get the option here to pick the fields that you want. So I'm going to remove all of those and just add a couple back, because one of the things I always find difficult in project is identifying where the data sits so you can pull the right column through. So I do want actual costs, so I'm just going to double click on that. I want actual work, and I want baseline cost and baseline work. Let's go for that one. So I've just got 4 fields, clicking OK to that. So OK again, and then it runs it. Now it comes up slightly different because now you have to build the pivot table. So let's just tick some of these on. These are all the summary fields, if you like, and then you've got the options there for resources. So there's a list of resources. Now it's put resources down here, but I could equally put the resources over there. Whichever way you want to look at this, it's up to you. If you don't want resources, you can tick the time, and then you can put the calendar back over here. You can manipulate the values box and put it over that side. So this is the pivot side of pivot tables. Now obviously I've messed this up a little bit, so I'm just going to take a couple of these ticks off to bring it back into a small little box there, because what I want to do is add a pivot chart to this. So if I just get myself a pivot chart, you can see how that works. Straightforward little graph like you saw before. This is just sitting next to this now. I'll just make sure it's not in the way, so I'll just move it across a little bit. So now you have to be slightly careful with this, because if you are ticking things on like resources, that's now banged into the graph a little bit, and you might want to take some of these off. So let's have a look at, let's not look at work, let's just look at cost. So then it becomes a little easier to see. And you can filter this off as well if you don't want to look at all of this. If I don't want to look at unsigned, I don't want to look at equipment, so you just take these off. Paper, I'm not interested. Okay, so then that is now just showing the people baseline cost against actual cost, and then I could do the work, put the work on, take the cost off like that. And then you want to save this. If I save this, what it does, it saves it as a template, an Excel template. I'll call this Steve template, so we can identify it. It's going into the templates folder. Save that. Say yes to that, so it just refreshes the data, and then close that down. And close this down. So let's have a quick recap of that. If I click on Visual Reports, and you've got mine there now, look, sitting there alongside the other one I did, Steve's work. So if I take the tick off Visio, it won't show as much. And then if I go through this, you see the resource usage is the information that I selected my template from. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. If some of these reports aren't actually doing what you want them to do, you can just create your own, and you can have a list of reports there. So that's basically a quick look at the visual reports, how you can create your own, how you can run visual reports into Visio or Excel. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for your time. In this module, I want to look at earned value analysis, a quick short look at it. So on the screen I've got the earned value table, so I'll just go and get it again for you. So I'll show you where it is. It's in more tables at the bottom here, and there it is, earned value, apply. Now I've also inserted the percentage complete and duration fields just to make this a little bit easier. So that is insert column, and then you pick the one you want. I don't want any of those. So I'm going to create one task, task A. It's going to be a 1 day duration task, and then I'm going to assign a resource to it. So a resource sheet, Bob, he's going to be on £10 an hour. Come back to the Gantt chart and assign Bob. Resources at the top, assign resources, assign Bob. Close that. So what you need to do now is save a baseline for this to work, and I'm going to do that. So project, set baseline, okay, and then these columns get filled in. So what have we got here? So we've got this first one, planned value. So baseline cost work scheduled, that means, or budgeted cost work scheduled, should I say. And this is budgeted cost work performed, so planned, earned, actual cost work performed, then scheduling variance in cost terms, and cost variance. So if you've got an additional resource to come on, how does that impact? So that would be to do with time increasing. If you get, this task is 1 day at the moment, but if it goes to 2 days, that will impact this field. And then estimated at completion, your baseline cost, and then the variance, how much off plan were you. So all of these you can go into help and get some more information on. Help gives you a bit more information in terms of examples and best uses and things like that. But these little short tips are quite useful as well. So let's see how this is going to work then. So if I put this 1 day task at 10% complete, let's see what figures get filled in. So we've earned £8, that's right. Actual cost is £8. We're £72 to go, and that cost variance hasn't changed because we have not added an extra resource. Everything else is the same. Okay, let's change the duration to 2 days, so that if I change that to 2 days, now you get the cost variance field coming up. If I go back up and change this to 20%, that went back down to 5%, but I put it to 20%. You can see that the cost variance field is now changing because the duration has changed, and we've got a person on it, a resource on it that we didn't plan to have, and also the scheduling variance has changed because of that incurred extra cost. Now if I add another person, that's going to make it even worse. So if I go down and add Bill, he's on £10 an hour. Go back to the Gantt chart. So assign him to the same task. Assign. I'll close that. So you've got 2 people on. So now when you start increasing this, these figures should start changing quite a lot. So let's go with 50% complete. So now it's costing us cost variance. If I put that back on there so you can see what that means, earned value, cost variance, the difference between how much it should have cost and how much it is costing, difference between the current progress and the baseline plan of tasks. So these 2 fields are telling you if you're incurring any additional costs. Now if I delete all this off, if I put that back to 0, and put that back to 1 day, we've still got the scheduling variance because of Bill. I'll take Bill off, kill Bill. So Bill's no longer part of this. Everything is gone back to 0. Cost variance, I should have said, not scheduling variance. That's still £80 to spend. So if I start spending this, if I go to 50%, that goes to 40. If I go to 100%, that should go to 0 because everything's on target. Everything's as it should be. No variance at completion. So if I put that back down to 0, so everything's okay. But if I extend this, so if I extend this to 2 days, we've now got, that's the estimated completion. We've got an £80 variance. These costing hasn't been added to yet. I'll go 20%, doesn't matter what I put in here really. Now it's starting to impact on that. If I put this, I'll leave that as it. If I then go and create another person, Bill again, at £10. So this is what happens in a project anyhow. You're going to get these additions during the project, or it could be the other way around. You're losing resources, so it's going to impact you. So you're just using this table to give you some idea of where you should be and if you're on target or not. So the variance at this stage now with me doing that is 176 quid. So your baseline cost was 80. Now you estimated to spend 256 and you've got a variance of that. Now if I put this to 3 days, that's going to put that back down. I'll put it back to 50% on 3 days. You can see it's costing even more. Okay, so if we have a quick look at some of the other earned value tables, so I'll put this back to 0 and 1 day. So we've got still got a variance of £48. Now if I go up to the view tables, more tables, you've got cost indicators, so I'll apply that one. So you've got this TCPI field, which is the ratio of work remaining to be done and the funds remaining to be spent, and there's a formula for that at the bottom. You've also got this this percentage field. Now let's just have a look at this. So I just need to insert those fields again. So let me insert the duration field, duration, and the percentage complete as well. So if I knock Bill off, I don't need to delete him, do I? I just need to remove him from this. Remove Bill for now. Okay, so if I start completing this, what's happening here? So if I do 40%, oh, let's do 50%. So it's still a 1-day task, 50% done. Got a CPI of 1, cost performance index 1, so that's bang on schedule. Now if I change that to 2 days, now we're behind schedule. So a number less than 1 means we're behind schedule. You know, we're 100% CV percent there, that's 100% behind schedule because it's 2 days. And if this is over 1, you are ahead of schedule. But that is obviously telling you what that impact is. So these tables are great little tools to look at. You don't have to bring all the table in. You can just bring maybe this one in, or that one in, maybe just insert it into another table, into your cost table, and then you get a bit of an eyeball of what's going on your project. And the other one, I'll just quick put it on the screen, I'm not going to go through it, is the schedule indicators. And you can see it's already showing negatives there. Not as much stuff, but you've got a negative in terms of schedule in there. So this is the ratio of schedule variance to budgeted cost of work scheduled, expressed as a percentage. So you're behind schedule basically, and that's the same thing, only this wants to be a positive as well. Alright, so that's a quick look at earned value tables. Hopefully that was of use to you, and I'll see you in the next one. In this module, I want to look at how you can create an S-curve from Microsoft Project. So at the moment, you're looking at a screen of earned value columns. So you can see there we've got the BCWS column, planned value, which is budgeted cost of work scheduled, ACWP, which is the actual cost of work performed, and then this one, the budgeted cost of work performed, basically a cumulative value of the percentage complete of the task. So these are the fields I'm going to use in my S-curve, and what you need to do is have a project that has a baseline, because none of this works without saving a baseline. And if I quickly go to the report tab so you can have a look at what I'm talking about. So this is the S-curve, creating the S-curve there, and those are the 3 fields. And if I just click onto those, you can take these off if you don't want them, and then they should be removed like so. So it's basically whatever you want to have put in there. So I'm going to recreate all of this from scratch in a new file. So if I go back to my base Gantt chart, let's just copy these tasks. And in fact, I'll do it like this. I'll copy the whole thing, resources as well. Copy, Control C, Control N, new. Paste them in. Okay, so there's my tasks, and let's just get these back to not complete. And if I just move this over a bit, you can see when you copy things like that in project, it's already copied the resources, and it would have already populated the resource sheet, which is quite clever, but also something you need to be aware of when you do copy and paste. Now, so there is all our tasks, and they've all been fully loaded up. Now this is a blank file, so I'm just going to save this as S-curve. So So you can have it as S curve. Better put that as 3 because I've already got 2. Save that. Now what I need to do is save a baseline. So save a baseline, project, set baseline. Just save that baseline. You've got 11 baselines altogether. I'm just going to save that one. Okay, so that's now a project ready to go. And now if I change the table, so if I go view, tables, and more tables, and select the earned value table, cost indicators, apply that, you can see you get these fields like so. And if I go back to the resource sheet, there's something I didn't notice, so I need to put some costs in here. So I'll do that right now. So these are all on £10 an hour, and overtime rate is 15. I can copy these down. So no, I can't because these are not in the right order, so I'll need to do it again. Then I can copy it down. So paper is material, Microsoft Office is material, and computers is material. Okay, and everything else is work. And now the cost for these, computer is going to be a fixed cost of 500, and Office, Microsoft Office is going to be 100, paper is going to be £1 per pack. Okay, let's go back to the Gantt chart. Let's have a look. So that's put some figures in there. Now I need to reset the baseline because that they weren't there to start off with. So that's the actual cost. If I go back to project and just save over that baseline, set baseline, select it, still the same one, click OK. Yes. Now this planned figure appears. So this figure is, if you look at this title, it's the cumulative work time phase. So basically just today's value, even though that's a 1-day task, I had it as a 2-3 day task. I'll just put that back to a 3-day task. If I go back to entry, I put that back to 3 days, it was on 3 days, and then come back to this table, you can see it's just reporting on the work completed so far. That's why that figure is different to that, because if you look at Anne and Ben, 160, computers 500, 600, and paper £1. So that's where that value is coming from just today. And these will, as you get to these tasks, these will populate as well. Now, to create the graph, what we need to do is a couple of things. I'm just going to get rid of this table and go to the tracking table. I'll go down to the tracking Gantt view down here. Now when I use the tracking table, I use it in the tracking view. So tables, tracking, and then I need to, because you can't actually see what the baseline start is meant to be, I always insert, if I insert that column, baseline start, so I know when it was due to start, baseline finish. Creating your own little tables is quite a good way of getting on top of all these, that's the wrong column, getting on top of all these different fields. So baseline finish, that one, and also baseline duration I like to have so I know what the planned duration was. Baseline duration, so there's the information. So now I can start updating some of these tasks. But before I do that, I want to create a report. So report, and just going to create a new report, and I could call it S curve. Okay, and move that across. So this wants to be a time-based report. So to do that, you've got across the top there different options. It's on name, put it to time, and you get the dates coming across there. So down the bottom it's on the project summary option. There's all the subtasks. If I put that on there, it becomes very unreadable. So that's not something that I'm going to do. Project summary, and it's on actual work and work. So I don't want these fields. You can either tick them off or you can find them, and like that, off. So what I want is, I don't want baseline, I want the cost fields. So let's go to costs. So these are the fields I want: actual cost, work performed, and budget cost, work performed, and that one, those three. And I want these as a line, so just click on that, chart type. They're all down as columns actually, so I'll have them all as line with markers on. Now there's nothing in there at the moment because I haven't done anything. I'll click OK to that, and then just leave that, and then just go back to my Gantt chart and start tracking Gantt and start updating some of these tasks. Let's get rid of this timeline because it's slightly annoying. Off. Alright, so let's say, now this is how I update tasks in this table. Rather than doing the 100% complete, which is, don't want that column, just delete that off, which is a very lazy man's way of doing things. It's more accurate to use the duration, or even more accurate still, using the hours, the man hours. So this task was planned for 3 days. Let's say it took 4 days. That will automatically make this complete, and it's put the start date and the finish date in. So it's letting the project do the scheduling for you. And then if I say this one was meant to be 2 days, let's say this was 3 days, and then you can see it's moving off the baseline marker there, and the actual cost is being shown in that column there. Now train, let's say that was meant to be 2 days, let's say that was 4 days, and now this one is a milestone, so this one is no time, so you can just go 100% like so. And now onto the install room 2, it's meant to be 3 days, so let's say it was 4 days, and we'll just do one more. Let's say this was 2 days. So we've now added some detail into this. We've been tracking our project's progress. So if you go back to the reports, and your report should be under custom S-curve, and then you should see some information coming up. Now there's no information showing here because the status date is set as today, so it's only showing it as today. So we need to go and change the status date, which is on the project tab, and let's go back to the Gantt chart, so that becomes active project, and status date is we need it going forward to say the 8th of January. So let's set the status date to that, the 8th of January. Okay, so now these figures have populated, and then you go back to your report, go to custom S-curve, and there's your graph picking that up. So because I'm doing a training example and we're not actually moving forward in time, that's why this graph didn't populate, so you have to use a status date. But if we were using this as in a live example, a live environment, moving forward day on day on day, the graph would naturally build up because it would be looking at today's date, and you would only need to use the status date if you want to do or show where you expect to be in the future. So that's how you create an S-curve in Project, and that's all I want to talk about on this little exercise. So hopefully that's been of use to you, and I'll see you on the next one. In this module, I want to have a look at creating a project navigation report with hyperlinks to different areas in the project. So you can see on the screen here, I have a report called Project Navigation with some data on there. On the left hand side, I've got some links to various parts of the project. Just click on this first one, Tracking Gantt. That will open up the Tracking Gantt view, and I've also got the Tracking Gantt table activated. Now on this Gantt chart, I have a link to take me back to Project Navigation. Next one, Resources. and then a link back, S-curve analysis, which is a report, and then a link back, and then a work progress overview, resource overview, and then a link back. So it's just a navigation form, or report should I say, that gets you around various parts of your project. And you can also have this as the opening up view. You have to a little tweak you need to make that to work. But what I want to do now is just recreate something similar to this. I'll call it project design. So it'll be a new report. So I'll go to reports and new, just pick a blank one. So I'll call it project design. We'll get a blank one there. So what you need to do is use text boxes. So text boxes, I'll just do, and then you type in whatever you want as a label, project resources, and I'll do another one, project tracking, and then another one. So whatever you want, I'll just do 3. And project reporting. So each of these needs to be linked to the various bits that you've used as a title, so resources and tracking. I'll do that in a second. But I want to put some information in on this bit, so I'll get myself a little chart. So there's a default chart, that'll do. Just position that wherever you want it. And the default table I'll do as well. So table, which is a project status. Just position that under there. I don't want the start and finish date, so I'll just remove each one of those. Right click, remove, or you can take the tick off, and then you can resize this box and position it wherever you want. So that's all I want to do for that. Now the links, so if I highlight these, and then you just right click, and you've got the link option on the right mouse click, and then you can link to the relevant bits. So this is resources, so I don't want, it's on reports at the moment, place in this document. So I go up to resource sheet is what I want, so I want it to link to that. This one is tracking, so this needs to link to the tracking table, so link. So this is going to be views tracking Gantt, that one. And then this will just be to another report. Link, so I'll call this resources, resource overview. I'll go for that one. Okay, so now you just click those and it links straight to, in this case, the resource sheet. And I've got a link there from before. I don't want to go to that project navigation. I want to go back to this other one, which I've forgotten already what I've called it, project design. So I need to edit this link. So right click, hyperlink, edit. So this needs to go to project design. Now you can't see project design in there, because what you have to do for this to work, so you can do the links, is you need to go to the view tab, other views, more views. You need to get into the organizer, and you need to get that report. So go to reports, and then project design, you need to push this into the global template. So just copy it across, copy it into there, close that, right click on there again, hyperlink, edit link. So now you should be able to find that. So we're on project design, there it is. So it wasn't there before, now it is. Click OK. So that should link back to your project. The same for tracking. This has already got one there. Again, it's a wrong one, but now because I've already pushed that across into the global template, I should have it. Project design. Okay, check it, click, and then project reporting. There's a link here that I've just drawn another text box on, so I'll leave that one there. I'll just draw another text box because this is a report, and call it project design, and then highlight that, right click, link, and then you're coming back to your project design report. Okay, then you just click it and it takes you there. So all of these work go in there and they all work coming back, so you've checked that now. Now if you want this to be your default view when you open project, if I go to file, options, so at the moment it's on Gantt chart with timeline, you will need to create a view and add it into this list here. So I'm going to try and do that. Now it's not as straightforward as you might think, because you can't click on view and save this as a view because it's a report. So what you've got to do is create a view. So if I go into the Gantt chart, you've got to create a view with that report in it. So if I split the screen, put details on, so in the bottom part I'll have the Gantt chart. At the top I want the report. Report, custom project design. So now I need to pull this down a little bit. You can see now where you might need to adjust this report because there's not much space. I can maybe push that up out of the way over there. Like so. And you can bring this back up. And maybe you just want a summary, because this is just the opening screen. I've got that with a name on it. You can have it on a laptop, it's quite small, but on a big screen you'll be able to see all of that. I'll just collapse that down for now, and then we need to save this as a view. So if I click into the top part and go view, it doesn't have me as a save option there, it's grayed out. But if I click on the bottom part and go view, you're basically tricking this save view. I'll call it project start. Now this view is really just that part, as you'll see in a minute. So you need to go up to other views, more views, and into the organizer, find the view called project start, that one, and copy it into this global template. Close that one. So now if I go file, options, I can change this to project start. There it is, project start. Okay. Now if I close this file down, yes, and then go back to open software implementation, that one, it should open up with that view, which it does. Then you can adjust it, and then you've got your links still. You can go to the various places. If I've added a link to the reports up here, so if I go to project design, it'll bring me back to there. Tracking takes me to the tracking Gantt, and takes me to that. Okay, so that's just basically creating a report. If I just go back to the initial one, project navigation. So this report is basically a navigation report to take you to the main areas of project, or the main areas that you use in project. So you can add as many of these links as you need just to make it more user-friendly for everybody, especially people that are not familiar with Project. What we're going to do today is look at some of the other views that you can get from the view bar or the menus. And the first one we're going to look at is the network diagram. So I'm going to click on the network diagram, and there you see it. I can just zoom that down a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Now, these are preset tables that you can use. You can select different tables to show different information on this network diagram, but you can also create your own table, which is what I want to do now. So I'm just going to double click on the white area. Now you can see the different types of box that you can select. In my example, most of these are critical, so I'm going to leave it on critical, but just to show you how this works, you have different data templates to select from that are preloaded. So that's the cost one, and then you can see the other ones there. And if I put that back to standard, you've also got the ability to create your own template, which is what I want to do there through this option, more templates. I'm going to click on new, and I'm going to just call this Steve. Now you can change the cell layout if you want. I'm just going to put this to I'll leave it on 3 rows, but put it to 2 columns. Click OK to that. So first one I'm going to type is name for the task name, and you get a preview at the top there. Then I want percentage complete and actual cost. So that's what I would like for this particular template. That's okay if I click OK to that. Click OK, close that box, and then apply that table from this drop down. You should see my name, and then that is shown in the preview box. If I click OK to that, that will then be applied to the relevant boxes. I would also need to select the same table for the milestone markers, but basically that is how you create your own table. Now the benefit of this network diagram is that it's not restricted by the timeline, which the Gantt chart is always restricted by this timeline scale. When you select the network option, you could print this off, and it is not restricted by the timeline, and also it's displayed as a flowchart, so some people find it a lot easier to follow. So that was the network diagram. The next one I want to look at, coming down this left hand side, is the task usage sheet. So there's a task usage sheet, or the view. Now what you have in this view is a list of all the tasks. There's install software room 1, can widen that, and then the resources allocated to that task and that task and so on. And on the right hand side you have the allocation in terms of work hours for the people, and then quantities for the material resources. And if I right click on this right hand side, I can actually see that there are other options I could select. For example, actual work. This then grows if I keep clicking that, cumulative work, and so on and so on. And if I go to the format tab at the top, you can see there is another option there that I could use to activate those features. Now I find if you put too many things on the right hand side, it gets very difficult to look at. But what you do get in this view is the ability to double click on either the task or the resource, and if I just double click on the task, it does give you task information. If I double click on the resource, it doesn't give you resource information in this particular view, it gives you assignment information. So you can see there that this is the assignment information for Anne, and on this particular task she's doing 8 hours. And then you have this feature here called work contour, where it says flat, and then there you have a series of options there for different work contours. These are really used for when you're doing project planning and you're not quite sure of what the loading would be for a resource, but you've got some sort of historical data or data from other sources that you can use. And for example, a backloaded resource would maybe a project manager doesn't do much during the initial planning phase of a project, and then has a lot of work to do towards the end of the project, or vice versa. That one front loaded, does a lot of work to get it going, doesn't actually do much on the project, and then so on and so on. You've got different options there. It is a tool to use to give you some sort of figures and some sort of costings and predictions, but you need to be careful with it. So I'm just going to try and give you an example of it. Just cancel that off for a minute. If I go onto the Gantt chart and just create a task A, say it's a 10-day task. If I assign, who can I assign to this? And I'll assign Anne to it. Doesn't matter about them being over allocated. Okay, wrong column, my fault. And okay, so Anne's assigned to that task. So if I go into task usage, you can see she's assigned for 80 hours, 10 days, 8 hours a day. But if I double click on Anne and change that work contour to, say, backloaded, watch what happens. Backloaded. She's still assigned for 80 hours, but the duration has increased to 16 days. So that's what you've got to be aware of. Now the calculations that it uses, it spreads these figures across that range depending on whichever contour you use. So I'm just going to undo that. What I would tend to do is manually set a work contour by maybe going like this: 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours, 6, 6, 6, and so on and so on, all the way to the end. So you're not increasing the duration, you're just adjusting the actual working hours per day, so that if that was a project manager, she might not be working the full 8 hours a day on the project. So that reflects that, and that therefore you haven't increased the duration, and you've adjusted the work contour, and you get the little symbol in the information column there saying this work assignment has been edited. So that's task usage. So the next one down, or the next one I want to look at, if we're coming down this list, is the timeline. Just going to click on the timeline. Now on the format tab it gives you some options there. So you've got existing tasks, so you can populate this with maybe your milestones: room 1 complete, room 2 complete, project complete. Click OK to that. They're all sitting on top of each other at the minute. So let's just go and change some of these dates. 15th, 15th, they all finish on the same date. Okay, let's go back to the timeline and add some different tasks just to make it separate slightly. So install software room 1 and train on software room 2. Okay, and you start getting them populating on there. Now you've also got this the ability to add another time bar. So I'll put that on, and then on the second one, this is going from the 13th to the 24th. So if I click on that and just change that date range to this, say just from the 13th, I keep it on that, just that week, 13th to the 17th. Okay, so that now becomes a smaller timeline, and again you can add tasks on there. Maybe that one fits on there, does it? Yeah. Okay, so it's a bit of a visual thing. Now with timelines, you've got the ability to copy them, send them for email, or put them into PowerPoint through this button. You've also got the option of changing the date format from this side, and you've also got the option to add tasks. So if I click on this one and add a task, I'll just call this review and click OK to that. So that review is sitting over there at the moment, and if I go back to the Gantt chart, that will have added the task review. I'll just get rid of task A and then just get rid of that blank line. If I say that review is going to be a 1-day task and it is going to follow task 10, so it's after the project, you're going to review the project. that sits there, and if I go back to the timeline, the reviews move to the end of the project. So that's the timeline, quick overview of the timeline. The next thing down I want to look at is a quick look at resource usage, which is very similar to task usage, except it is looking at it from a resource perspective. So you've got Anne there, and what Anne's on, she's on install software in one, so it works in the same way as task usage. Again, if you go to format, you've got the options to tick different things on. If I double click on Anne, it takes me to resource information this time. If I double click on the task, that gives me the assignment information, and that's where I can change the work contour. I'll just cancel that. So it's identical to task usage except from a resource perspective. And one more I want to have a look at is the team planner. Now I'm coming down this view bar to get these views. View bar's not always on when you first get projects, so I always activate it. It used to be a great feature because it was a static feature, but now it's dynamic, so as you click on different views they get added to this list, which is slightly counterintuitive and makes it more difficult to find things. So you end up going up to the top and using the different options from either resource or tasks. So you've got these things up there. So the one I want is actually the team planner, so I'm just going to click on the team planner. So this gives you a very visual indicator of where your people are and what they're doing, and it's a very simple way of allocating a task to a person. It's not great to allocate tasks to two people. You would have to do that in your Gantt chart. If I go back to the Gantt chart, you can see that I've added contractors to those two tasks, but it's very difficult to add two people to the same task. You would have to do it in this view, and then the team planner would reflect that. That's the team planner. Now there's an option there to do more views, and you can also do more views from the top. If I click on view, and then you've got other views and more views. In more views you are able to create your own view, but first of all you can see that there are quite a few other ones preloaded that you can use. But just so you can see how this works, I'm going to create a new view. I'm going to have a combination view, which means it's a split screen. Clicking OK to that, I'll just call it my name, and I will have the Gantt chart on the top. In fact, I'll have the detailed Gantt chart on the top, and then I will have the resource graph at the bottom. Then I'll click OK to that, and then I can apply. In fact, let me just edit that again. Did I tick? Yes, I did. Show in the menu, so it appears over this side, and there it is actually. If I click OK to that and then apply, that should split the screen, and then you get the resource graph at the bottom and the detailed Gantt at the top. So at the moment I can't see anything, so I'll just scroll to task, so it brings things into view. So I'm on the paper resource for install software room 1, but if I scroll back, in this case I should go back through the different resources, and if anybody was over allocated it would show me on this side, it would show in red. At the moment nobody is over allocated, so that's okay. And if I want to remove that view, that split, I can just go back to view and details, take that off. But I've quickly got the ability by clicking Steve there to bring that back. So it's something you would probably do when you're planning your project or allocating resources in your project, so you can see what's going off, and then maybe take it off after that and get back to whatever you find easiest to use. It's all dependent, I think, by the size of the screen you're using. If you're on a laptop, sometimes it's quite difficult to have split screens, but if you've got a large monitor, that's fine. Now that's the end of this module, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you soon. What I want to look at in this section is how to link project data into an Excel file, and vice versa, link data from Excel into project. So there's several different ways of doing it, so I'll have a few different options to show you. The first one though is straightforward paste link. So if I want this data to be in an Excel spreadsheet as an image but linked, all I have to do is highlight the data, copy it, get myself into an Excel file, and then use paste special. So paste special, paste link. It's going to come in as a object like so. So it's nothing you can edit as it is there in Excel, but it is a live link. So if I go and change something in project, go back into project for a minute. So if I just put a figure there, 1 after that, that's a change, and then go back into Excel, that's been picked up there. Look, so it's a live link. So you could just give this to somebody. They've got an overall view of your project plan. It could be a summary plan you've just done this with, and they would see any changes immediately like that. Now, if I just delete this for a second, so I think that's quite cool, that one. You can also just do copy and paste various elements. If I just highlight this data, just that much copy and just paste, but this is just a detached list. You would then be doing this if you was going to use Excel to manage a project, but if you've got projects, it's not an advisable thing to do. So that is also something you can do. And a third thing you can do is from project, you can use what's called a project map and map certain fields to go into Excel. So that's what I want to do now. And the way you do this is you go File, Save As, Browse. I'm going to put this on my desktop. Instead of having it as a project file, you select Excel Workbook and then you save it. It's already there, so I'll just overwrite it. This wizard starts, and then you go through the wizard. Let's go to this. I'll create a new map so you can see how that process works. I want to do it just for tasks. If you ticked all of these options, you'd basically get 3 sheets in Excel. But you can do that if you want, but I'm just going to do the first sheet. And then next, and then it gets you basically to map your fields. So the first field is normally the ID field, and then I want name, start. Now there are some set maps that you can pick. Duration, probably did that the wrong way around, but never mind. And percentage complete. That'll do for now. Next, I'm going to save that map, call it Steve. Already got one there, look. Save, and then you can just go finish. And then that will drop that onto your desktop. I'll just minimize this. And software implementation is there. And when you open that, there's your unformatted. If I just widen this up. So it's an unformatted spreadsheet, and you will have to fix this list, for example, because it's coming in as text. So it's to basically store this or convert this to a number, and then you can set that to a %, and that's what you've got. Data exported out like so. You can also bring data back into project from Microsoft Excel. Just turn this off. What you have to do is select the data. Now it has to be in the same order as the columns in project, otherwise it causes a bit of grief, so I'm just going to miss out that column. So I'll just copy this data and then back into project. I've got myself a blank file, so I'm under the task name, so I'll go paste special and link. Now it's text data I want, so that should drop it in. I'm just going to ignore that and just continue. OK, and then it drops it in. It's put constraints on, so you'll have to go into advanced maybe to knock this off, and then indent this stuff as you would normally do. But let's just go back into Excel and see what happens if we change any of this. So it's coming up there. Now, because I've messed about with that, let's just go back into Excel, change something. Let's change this. In fact, let's change that to 3 days. So you've got to put 3 days because it's going to be going into back into project. So 3 days on that, and then it's changed there already. don't. So that's gone to, let's put that into auto scheduled. So now let's pick that up. Just widen this a little bit. So because this is linked, you can't edit the data. I've just double clicked on that and it's brought me straight through to Excel. If I go back into project, this is a live link, so whenever you do Paste Special in Microsoft, it does exactly that. If you double click on something, it opens up the original source data. But if I change something else in here, so if I just say PO instead of PO received, so I'm making a change and then back into project, I should have picked that up, and it has done. Now, obviously this is a scenario where you've got people with projects and they want the functionality of project, but most people have got Excel. So rather than buying multiple licenses of Microsoft Project, you can just get people to update tasks in Excel. And if you've got them linked to various project files, the project files will update. But you can see on mine, what's happening is this is automatically going back to manually scheduled all the time. So let me just check that again. If I just go back into, I'll just put 1 there, and if I go back into project, it will have updated it, and it has put that back to manual scheduling, even though the days have not changed, because the scheduling is not being driven by project, it's being driven by Excel. So you can just be aware of that, and because that is the correct duration there, 5 days for this project. But again, it's totally up to you how you want to work that. So that's just a quick look at how you can link data from project into Excel and then from Excel back into project, and with a few things that could possibly go wrong or you need to be aware of if you're going to do this. I think sending data from project and linking it into Excel is a good feature, doable. Coming back the other way from Excel into project, I'd be a bit more nervous if I was a project manager working in project that data was accurate, and I'd want to double check everything. But that's the end of this session. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. In this module, I want to have a look at sprints, using sprints and boards. If you're used to using projects using Agile or Kanban or Scrum, you may be more familiar with boards than this sort of list. So in project, you can activate those features. So first of all, let's go and get the sprint. So go view, other views, more views, and sprint planning board is what I want. In fact, planning sheet, sorry, apply that. So it's come up with a sprint column. There's no sprints allocated, so I need to add some sprints. So when you come into this, you've got 1 sprint, 2 weeks duration, but if I want to add, put this down to add sprint, add, just change a few of these, add, and so on and so on. So you just create your sprints there, and you've got your start and finish dates that you can change if you so wish, but I'm just going to leave everything as default for now. Click OK to that. Now, as soon as you do that, you see this tab appear, sprints, where you've got a task board, which tells you percentage complete, etc. And you can set that. If I just set this to 25, set complete 50, and that's 100. Let's add a new column. Still going. And set the complete to 75 on that one. So obviously that's now in the wrong place. So if I right click on that, I can move it to the left and then it's in the right sequence. So that's how you can do that. And then these basically would just move across and you just drag and drop these. And if I right click on these, you can mark these as 100% complete. You can double click into it, you can delete them, you can assign resources. Well, resources are already on there, you can see that already. Now, if I go back to the next one, planning. So these are the sprints that you've set up. These are the tasks that you've got. So they're the same tasks as that you have in your Gantt chart, but now you've got them in your sprints, which I can't find now. That's it. Okay, you can add these views into this list. That's what I was looking for there, because I've already done this once and I put them all down here. So basically it's a case of putting these across into the relevant sprints that you've set up. It's just a case of dragging and dropping them, really. And you don't have to allocate them to a sprint. I'll just do that bit. Manage, that will take you back to this % complete option, and then that will allow you to add extra sprints. Okay, so what I've done is in sprints, I've noticed that this one is set to April. That's why nothing's coming up on the first sprint. So I should have changed the project start date. And this is probably going to cause a bit of grief now if I try and change this to today. Nothing's jumped out at me, but this probably has caused a bit of grief. If I go into manage, it hasn't changed that first date, but I'll put that to, let's put that to the 19th of October. Monday the 19th of October. So they've all changed now, so that should fix that. But that's why there's been nothing coming on to sprint 1. So if I go into the planning sheet, I've put everything back to no sprint. So I'm just going to go back through that. I'm not going to use sprint 1 because obviously it's gone into the past. So starting off with sprint 2. So these are going to be on sprint 2, for example. Then this one is going to be sprint 3, and these are just going to follow on 4, 5, 6, and the last one can be 6 as well. Now, obviously you can set as many as these up. These are weeks, remember, you can set these up to multiple weeks, so you may not have that many sprints. But if I click onto the sprint, the current sprint is sprint 2. If I go to, so that's today's date, that's why it's coming up with that, that's in the past. Sprint 3, there's only a couple of tasks on there. Well, I'll go to sprint 6 because there's 2 on there as well. So then you can go to the current sprint board, which will show you only the tasks that are due this week, and then you can move these across into the relevant place. And if I go to no sprint, it just shows there's nothing in no sprint. And then back to this one. Back to manage if you need to add extra ones. And then if I go to the task board, you can then start moving these around if they're complete. Now if I right click on these, I've already shown you this, but you can mark them complete there. But if you do mark them complete, you should have moved them into that column there. But if I go back to current sprint board, this is really where you should be doing this. So this is the stuff for this week. So if I say that is complete, you get a little tick coming up as soon as I drop it in there, and I'll come across and do that and say that's complete as well, and I get another little tick. So basically you're using projects, not really using the Gantt charts as your main driver, but you are using, I'll just get the task to come back across, you're using the boards through the sprints tab to update things. You can see it's already updated them in there. They weren't done like that before, but now because I've moved them across on here and saying they're complete, they are complete. And if I go back to the current sprint this week, you can see that those 2 are showing there. So basically using the sprint feature, you are creating a sort of filter for your project plan, and you're only looking at the tasks that are allocated to that particular sprint, and then the board will allow you to see how everything is going all together. But the sprints you can isolate like so. There's that awarded tenders completed. And if I just put that across there as well, that'll complete. So that should now have made 4 tasks complete on the Gantt chart, which it has done, which is great. So it's a different way of working in projects, but it's all to do with how you work as a project manager and what you're used to. Some people find working like this with a Gantt chart quite difficult. It's not easy to see, where when you're looking at sprint boards, it's a lot more easier to see and you're only looking at a small element. I suppose the downside for me would be you're not looking at the big picture perhaps, whereas in a Gantt chart you could have multiple projects linked in and you are seeing a big picture. Although the boards themselves, it's just how your mind works, I suppose, what you find easier. But that's all I wanted to show you, how to get the sprint. So just a quick recap, you went through the view tab, other views, more views, and then the sprints are in here. Sprint board, sprint planning board. But as soon as you create some sprints, your sprints tab will activate and then you can use it. Depending on what version of project you've got, you may already have the boards down here. And for those who do stuff with me or follow me, you know that I always right click and tick this view bar on. I just find it easier to see this list. However, having said that, it does get a bit cluttered when you start adding lots of different views in, but it's what you're used to, I suppose. But this sprints tab gives you all that you need to see, really. You've got the format options. You can customize these cards to show extra fields, so you can tick that. Let's do percentage complete actually in there so you can see it, even though you're putting it into a column. And then I'll say what the actual start date was. That's a nice one to know. So you've got five extra columns that you can put in here. I always like to see actual cost actually. So if I click OK to that, the boxes are going to get bigger, the cards are going to get bigger, but you now see extra information. Looks better. I'm liking that a lot. Very pretty. Let's put that in there. Alright, but that's the end of this little session on sprints and cards. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. In this module, I want to have a look at two things. One, how you can embed project files into a master file, and two, how you can use paste special to link project data into a master file. So first of all, in this file, I want to type master at the top, leave myself a line space. Go to the projects tab, click on sub-project, and then that gives you access to your computer. So the first one I want is move house. Double click on that, leave a line space, and then do the same thing again. Sub-project flood defense, like so. Now if I indent these two, the duration will be picked up at the top, 28 days total duration on these two projects, and you get the timeline on the right there on your Gantt chart for these two projects. Now if I click on these little arrows, that will expand each of these projects and you can see the detail on each of these projects. What you're doing here is you've created a master file, but you can actually work on these projects through this master file. But you can also work on these projects in isolation by just opening the source file and working away on it. Because this is a live link, any change made at either end will be reflected at the other end. Now if you want to link files like this in a master file, you can do between projects. This is, so if I click on that and then hold my control key down and click on allocate funds and then click the chain link, you can see there's a link there now with a file path. That one there is a file path. It's telling me where that is, and it's linked it, and the whole project has moved to the end of the first project. I'll just delete that off so it all comes back over. I'm not saying that's the way I would personally work, but that's the way you could work. So you're just saying that that project is following this one. This one's got to be completed first. If I close these down, you've just got the timelines at the top there of these two projects. And that's the quickest way of doing it. And if you're a project manager, you could have multiple sub-projects in one file. Avoid the hassle of having to run around to individual files and folders to find details of projects. You can just do it from one place. Now, quite often in project management, you don't want the whole project file to be available. You may only want a line. It may be a key piece of equipment or key process that needs to be reported up the chain, but not all of this detail. I'm sure the boss doesn't want to know when you emptied the bins, but this sort of thing there, allocate funds, maybe when was that done, that particular line of information you might want. So the second way of doing this is not to have all these. So I'm just going to close this down, not save it, note at all, get myself a blank file. What I'm going to do is create two projects, project A, with two tasks in each, task A and task B, and then I'm going to indent those two tasks and give myself a duration like so, just link them on, number 2. So that's a 50-day project, and I'll save this as project A so we know what it is. Project A, where's that going? Documents, that'll do. I'll get myself a new one. So this is going to be project B, task A and task B. Indent those two, give them some durations, 45 and 33 days, link them together, 2. So now we've got two projects, both with a timeline at the top there. This one's 78 days, I can't remember what the other one was, but it doesn't matter. What you then do is you create a third file. This is your master file. You save it as master, but I'm not going to bother saving this, I'm just going to type it in like that. And you do exactly the same. You bring the files in, but this time we only want one line of the file. So if I highlight project A, that line, copy, Control C, come back into the master file. I should have named that project B. That's the master file. And highlight the line, and you use paste special, paste link, and that comes in. And then you do the same for project B, which I didn't name, which is that one. Highlight the title, copy, come back over into the master file, highlight the row, use paste special, paste link, OK, and then you indent those two. It gives you a timeline at the top, 78 days. And if I go back into any of these projects, so I'll go into project B and change that to 66 days. So that's gone to 111. Come back to my master project, and that's picked that up. And again, you can just follow these on as well. So that's a slightly easier way, I think, to bring specific rows of information in from a large project. You might just want a few rows, key reporting lines. And you can also do this. If I double click on project A, it actually goes into project A anyhow, so you get the benefit of going into the source file by just double clicking. You haven't got all the information sitting in the master file, so it doesn't clutter you up. And I think it's a good tool to use to do reports on. So you can then go into reports and create reports based on this information, and send that up the chain to whatever management level you need to send it to. So there's two different ways of doing it: inserting a sub-project or using paste special and bringing individual lines in. But both ways, it's a great way to manage multiple projects. So that's all I want to talk about in this session. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Thank you for your time. What I want to cover in this module is how to link an Excel spreadsheet into a project plan. And there are several ways I'm going to show you how to do it. So first of all, to embed an Excel spreadsheet into a task, you basically just double click on the task, go onto the notes area. I suggest you give it a title. So if I call this config or something, so you know what it is, give yourself a little space. The reason I need a title is otherwise you don't get anything in this column. You just get that symbol, which is obviously not telling you anything. You then click on this option, insert object, create from file, in this case, browse for a document that you want. So if I go up to examples, get myself an Excel file, I'll just get charting, Now I'm going to link this, so any changes that are made outside of project in Excel, I will see them. If I open the file through project, it will be a live update I do. And just in case I might want to add more than one file, I'm going to tick this option which says display as icon. Otherwise the whole file will be open, and if I've got 2 files, I'll have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to get to the second one. Click OK, and there it is. And if I open that by double clicking it, there is the Excel file, and I can edit that as normal, and it is the same as everybody that's got access to this file would see the changes I made. Just close that one down. Didn't do anything. Click OK to that, and then you get a symbol which now says config, configuration file, or whatever, method statement, process. That's why you need to put the title. Otherwise you just get that little apostrophe you can see hanging at the bottom there, which doesn't really help. And also remember, you don't always see this information column in every table view. I'll just show you that. If I go into costs, for example, you don't see that column. So you need to be in one of the views that has the information column, or you add it yourself to whichever view you like to use. Now another way to do that is if I just double click on room 1 complete and call this one budget, give myself a space, click the same button. This time I'm going to create new, that one. I still want it to display as an icon, so I'll tick that, click OK. So now it opens up Excel, and I'm now able to use Excel inside this task. So this is attached to project, and if I just make this full screen for a second, it says worksheet in software implementation. I don't actually need to save this spreadsheet unless I want to save it outside of project. It will just live inside project. So I tell people when I'm doing courses that you could use this as a little budget reckoner if you wanted to, for a particular task or a series of tasks or on a summary task. So I'll just do a little 3-item sheet. So date, amount, so I'll do item there, not amount. Item. So today's date, control semicolon, I'll just pull it down to 3 dates, so we've got 3 dates. So item, we can say hotel, because as you get into projects, you'll notice if you use the cost field, when you do a project that's a task that's 100% complete, it doesn't spend the cost amount, it sits there at the end. Whereas if you do it like this and just put a fixed cost in, it will actually spend it when you do 100% complete. So if I just say the hotel was 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 quid for fuel and £20 for food. Key command at the bottom to add that up. Alt equals, press enter, adds it up for you. Just format all that to pounds. There you go. Close this down. Click OK. You get the same symbol with the title. And if I double click, go back into my worksheet, there it all is. So I didn't even have to save it. It's there. If I did save it, like I said, that would then be on your network or wherever you put it as well, and it'd be more like a linked file. We'll close that one down, close this one down. Now the other thing that you can do in project, so that's bringing Excel into the tasks. You can actually bring Excel into the Gantt chart, and what I mean by that is you can bring a graph into the Gantt chart. So if I highlight all of this, for example, and copy it, go back into project and select paste, it doesn't like that. Let's drop that in as tasks, and I don't want that, so I'll undo that. If I click on this side and try and paste, it just does the same thing, so I don't want that. But what you can do is copy the graph, come back into project, go up to the task tab, paste special, paste link is what I want, and this will put this on. You've got the option there as an icon, puts it on the Gantt chart so you can see it there. And because that's linked, any changes I'm making to the Excel file, so I'll just get rid of this big figure here. Which one's that? 88. Put that down at 1. So that's changed. And that's changed on there as well. 1. So it's linked. Now obviously that's not great. So what you can do is you can create yourself a view. So I'm going to save this view. So I'll go to View, Other Views. In fact, I'm not going to save it as a view, I'm going to save it as a table. Save Fields as a new table, and I'm going to call that Chart. Okay. And then I'm going to get rid of them all. Deleting all these off. I'm going to leave one on there, so just bring that and bring this up into the top corner, like so. Now I could create a view on this. So now if I go to a different table entry, this chart is still going to be there, and if I move these back across, the columns are still there. So you've got that option. I'm not too keen on that, to be honest. And if I look down this left hand side, I can see I've got a view called Chart View. So there is one I did earlier, where you can see I've got rid of all the tasks that are still sitting there. It's just no columns, and I've created a view. If I go to Views, More Views, so that's called Chart View. There it is, I'm on it, I can't see it for looking. What you have to do is create a table without any columns in it, so let's get rid of all these columns. But first off, I'll just need to save this as a table. Save Fields as a new table. I'll call it Saxo, and then I'll get rid of all of these, and then I need to paste special. Well, I can do that afterwards. So then what you've got to do now is create a view that's going to look at this table. So go to Views, More Views. Now I need to go into Organizer and get tables. That one I just did. Saxo, I copied across into the global. Copy. So make sure it's in there. There it is. Then I can close this. So now I've got a new view option. So single view I want, and I'll call it Test. It's going to be a Gantt chart view, but you've got all these. Well, it's going to use the Gantt chart screen, but you could use any of these. Table is going to be called Saxo, and there it is. And you need to select a group, so I don't want any grouping, no group, and all tasks filter. Click OK to that. Okay, test 1. Test 1, apply, and then now I should be able to do paste special, paste link, because I've still got it copied from before, and there it is. And then you can just move that across, and then that is a view like this one. So if I go back up to View, come down, More Views, find Test 1, apply, there's the one I've just done. So it's not the best way to use Excel, but it is a feature that is available. What I've done in the past is just basically drop that in on the project plan here, so you can just see it underneath. But if you've got a huge project plan, it won't work. So it's more to do with when you've got a master project, where you've got lots of projects that you can collapse, and then you can put maybe a budget spreadsheet or budget graph at the bottom, so it gives you a bit of a picture in terms of spend, rather than flicking between the reports. It's just personal preference and whatever you want to display. But those are the three ways that you can link Excel: through the task itself, through a task with a link to an Excel file, or just a straightforward Excel file, or you can go through this process of copy and paste a chart onto the Gantt chart itself, and if you want, then go on to create a view of that chart. So that's all I want to talk about in this particular session, so hopefully that was of use to you, and I'll see you in the next one. In this module, I want to show you how you can sync this project file with a SharePoint site, and then how you can get that SharePoint site into a Teams channel. So first of all, on the screen I've got a small project called Product Development. What I need to do, I've saved this, and what I need to do is go File, Save As, and you can see you've got the option there, Sync with SharePoint. So I'm going to click on that. Then this screen comes up, so you've got New SharePoint Site. I don't want to create a new site, I want to use an existing one. And then you've got this option coming up, and there are a few other options in there, but that's the one I want. Then you verify the site, and it gives you the option then to name the list. So I'm going to call this Products. Just call it Products, put a capital P on there, and then you just click Save. So that's now saved. If I go onto the SharePoint site and just refresh this task list or this site contents, I should see Products. There it is. And if I click on Products, you've got Product Development, which is the name of the project, and if you click on that, it should open up the tasks, and you can see the tasks there. Now if I go back into Project, if I just add a new task, if I just add a review task in there, say 2 days, and just link it to the end there, so it goes at the end. So at the moment that is not synced, so it's still as it was there on the actual SharePoint site. So if I go back and go File, Save As, sync again, and just save it like that, it will sync it on the SharePoint site. Just refresh this, and there you can see it's been synced there. You've got that there. You can actually add things on the SharePoint site. So if I just put test at the end there, give it a date, just move this across a little bit so you can see some of the other columns, and then a due date, 3rd of March. All the rest of it can stay as it is. So you've got that at the end there. Now when I go back to Project, if I go File, Save As, Sync, Save, it's brought test at the top there instead at the bottom, but it's now showing you that. So anything that you add in this view will appear once you do the sync option. So if I go File, Save As, Sync, Save, this brought that in there. So that's how you can get this project file onto a SharePoint file and have it synced. Personally, I'd just have it working one way just to make sure everything's okay. If I delete something, so let's have a look at doing this. Let's delete something on this. Let's delete those 2 tasks that I just did. And if I go File, Save As again, Sync, it now comes up and asks me, how do I want to handle this? Do I keep the SharePoint version or do I keep the project version? So I want to keep the project version. And again, so for both tasks. Now if I go back to SharePoint, review that, refresh that, they've gone. So we're back to square one. So now what I want to do is I want to get this into my team site. So I've got my team site down here. So what I'm going to do is add an extra section. I need a website option because I'm going to paste the website in. So I'll call this products as well, put a capital P on it. Now what I need to paste in here is the URL from that SharePoint site. So if I go back to the SharePoint site and just copy this, copy that, and then paste it into this, and then save, I should see that coming through onto a team site. So I'm on the training channel on my team's, Steve's team site, and there's a link to that project, and you can see it there. So you basically, just to recap, you create your project plan, you save it as normal, and then you want to sync it to SharePoint. So you go File, Save As, Sync with SharePoint, Save, and then that will save any changes. And if you want that available in your team site, you just copy the web address and paste it in on the website app. That's the end of the course, guys. Thank you for taking the course. I hope you subscribe, and I'll see you on the next course.